Welcome back to Late Night at the Movies on the Late Night Chat Network, your first stop for pop culture talk. This is episode 61, Spirited Away, everybody. This is our movie review show here on the Late Night Chat Network, where we all take turns and make picks of movies we want to go back and rewatch and come back here and talk about them, do deep dive, analyze them, pick them apart, let you know what we like out of the movie, what we dislike. And I'm your host, Nico, and joining with me today, we got Julie Mack and JT up in the house. What's going on, guys? And you can also check us out on Letterboxd. Our Letterboxd names are underneath our names here on the screen. I'm Neeks87, Julie Mack 13, and then JT Master JT. And we also do another show, Late Night Letterboxd, where we kind of get into what we've been watching and what we're looking forward to watching and just more general movie talk. If you kind of missed that on this show, as we used to do at the end of the episodes, you can also go out and check that one. But yeah, make sure to like and subscribe. And Julie, as mentioned, is the one who picked this movie, a movie that's very near and dear to her, as far as I understand. It is actually in her top 4 movies on Letterboxd, right? So yeah, so Julie, why don't you go ahead, take it away, and let us know why you picked this one here.
I don't think it was anyone's surprise that I picked this movie when they jumped in to watch this video we're doing here. And yeah, it's my top 1 in my top 4. It's my favorite movie of all time. And I've held on to that. Well, I'll get into it. I
just coerce you into picking this a little bit because Julie actually, I guess, somewhat cares about some of her other co-hosts and what they were willing to watch, which I listen, I had to nudge you, not to say that you didn't want to pick this, but I had to be like, who cares? I mean, it's about what you like, what your pick, right? And the person that she was mainly worried about is on the screen here with us. We'll get to his thoughts, but sorry to interrupt, Julie. I just wanted to say that, I really wanted to point this out. We had to single this guy out because
he still showed up.
He did. He's here. He's here to have some hot takes, I'm sure.
I guess we should mention also, yeah, Max obviously is not here with us today, our 4th co-host. He was unable to make it, but listen, he doesn't like Julie and JT's picks.
That's okay.
That's just
apparently, yeah.
Right. He has promised me that he's going to watch it this summer, though.
That's right. So wait for his review upcoming. But go ahead, Julie. Sorry to interrupt.
So just to sort of summarize for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, but I mean, if you're here watching the fucking video about us talking about, I'm sure you've seen it. But anyway, this movie was made in 2001. It is a Japanese animation. It stars 10-year-old Chihiro and her parents who are moving to the suburbs, and they accidentally wander into this spirit world, and they become part of it and unable to leave. And the story just follows Chihiro on this sort of coming of age story, and she has to overcome a number of these trials in order to save her parents and get back home, back to her own side of the river. The first time that I saw this movie, in the pretext of which I had seen trailers when I was a kid for Kiki's Delivery Service. So I was aware of Studio Ghibli a little bit when I was young, but I'd never come across the movies anywhere. I'd never seen them at Blockbuster, I guess. I'd never seen them in bargain bins anywhere. I'd never come across any of it in the wild. But I remember, I don't know, one night I was on psychedelics and I was like, I want to revisit some old childhood movies. And I remembered that fucking trailer I saw for Kiki's Delivery Service. So when I was looking into the Studio Ghibli stuff, Spirited Away, arguably the most popular one of his catalog, is the first one that came up. And then when I looked into sort of the storyline of it and the length of it, I was like, you know what, I'm going to watch this one first. So in my hazy state that I was in, I watched this one, and this was, I want to say 2018 or 2019 when I first saw this movie. So it hasn't even been that long. But
it's been out for a while, eh?
Oh, it's been out for 26 years. Or 25 years. And
Oh, we're doing
yes,
this on the 25th anniversary. There you go. I mean,
there we go.
that's pretty timely as well. There you go.
2001. Yeah, it works out. Yeah.
Yeah, so 24, yeah. But so the yeah, so needless to say, some parts of it my co-host might understand. They're a little spooky when you're, maybe on some mind-altering substances. They're a little much, but I nonetheless quite the experience to have watched it that night when I was experimenting. And I really liked it a lot. I really, even though it was like hella weird at some times, I really connected with it. And then, yeah, I think like there's just so much attention to detail and the ambience of the entire thing. Like there's so much set up to the world itself. Like these sort of long lingering shots of like the landscape and stuff, like is something that I really appreciated. Yeah, and you guys have heard me say this before too in reference to other movies, and I'm back on my bullshit with this again, but the music is like something that really resonates with me, and I think that would be obvious with this kind of scoring that like I think it sticks out. It stands well on its own. So yeah, to this day I still tell everyone it's my favorite movie, and I believe that to be true. It's very, even though I only saw it in 2019 or whenever that was, it's very nostalgic and very whimsical, and it very much speaks to my inner child, the whole thing. So yeah, even though I only saw it when I was an adult, I wish I had seen it when I was a kid. But that's kind of my history with it, and I do a rewatch of it every 6 months, I would say.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
6 months? Seriously?
Yeah, I probably watch it twice a year. Sometimes I'm sober, sometimes I'm not.
It's our favorite movie, bro. That's interesting. I didn't know that the origin story of you kind of checking this out, it also had to do with
my second rewatch. I was sober and I still loved it, so it held its own.
Oh, that's hilarious. I didn't know that was part of your whole origin story with this film.
Yeah,
I
was on another planet when I saw this.
Yeah.
I gotta tell my nephew not to watch this because he's probably gonna watch this because he likes it, and yeah. We don't need him to know about psychedelics going through high school. So that's no, but yeah, I can see where that would really take you for a ride in this movie.
I gave you the PG version of what I was up to.
No, I get it. I understand.
There's more to it.
I didn't go into specifics.
You're gonna have to give me the R version after that.
Well, did you pretend you were humping a radish?
No, I'm just saying I didn't give you the full disclosure of what I was on.
That's fair. Yeah, that's true. You have a couple of different options there, so there you go.
Yeah. Take your pick. Yeah.
Yeah, probably a little different than what I was watching it.
Yes, I would say yes. Maybe up a level from that.
or two.
Or two.
What do you think?
I checked this out probably in my late 20s, early 30s. I frequent a store that sells a lot of movies, and I know friends of mine that had suggested I check out a Miyazaki film. So I was kind of late to the party on the Miyazaki stuff. Like this is even previous to Netflix putting them all on there. Because I know a lot of people have been able to watch them on Netflix for the first time. And I didn't even really know at the time that these were movies that were sold to Disney to kind of play in the States.
That's why I'm surprised they're not on Disney Plus, actually.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with, I guess, the fact that it is done by their studio, like their studio in Japan, but they lease it out, I guess, to even though it's because Disney is just the American distributor of these films, right? Like originally these movies you can actually watch along with the most recent release from Miyazaki was The Boy and the Heron. I actually went and watched that here in Toronto at a screening. And it was subtitled when you go to watch it, because when it first comes out, it takes a while for them to actually get all the voice actors and get it all actually translated. So when it first was released, we got screenings of it here, and it was subtitled. They had no actual voice actors. And then by the time that it actually came out on video and the streaming services, it was all with voice actors. And nowadays, something I was actually surprised about in this film This is, I don't know about you, there wasn't really that many big standouts in terms of names in this one for the voice actors for the actual American version. Like because usually
There's a couple.
Yeah, there's a couple, but usually with his other films, there's a lot of big names. Like, I mean, Christian Bale,
True.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Like, there's like people that like, you know what I mean? Like really marketable names that were voices in these films as well, where I don't even think people acknowledge that a lot of the time is that they, you know, because they're not, I guess, originally part of these films. They're kind of just thrown in after the fact, right? I don't know.
I guess that's a thing I should have clarified too, that my watching of this, well, I know that JT watched the English dub. Did you watch the English dub or did you watch the Japanese version?
The only one I've ever watched sorry, go ahead. Sorry, Jay. I thought you asked me.
I was just gonna say, no, I think so. She might have too, but I got confused there. Yeah, no, I watched the English dub, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't like subtitles, but
I figured.
To be fair, I don't think I've ever watched, except for The Boy and the Heron that I watched in theaters, I've watched all dubs as well.
Okay.
I know
so did I.
Sometimes with subs, I know there's like, it's like sometimes people say you have to watch them with subtitles because you lose something in translation with the flow of the film. I know there's people that watch strictly anime in subs as opposed to dubs. Like there's a dub and sub crew always like we're conversation with these kind of things. I feel like with big anime fans, right? So, but yeah, if I have an opportunity, sometimes it really it changes the dynamic too. Like sometimes the voices are so bad. Like it was like a Squid Game. Like there's Squid Game. There's a version I think where they're talking with actual English, right? I think if I'm not mistaken, I think instead of Korean, like
maybe.
I think there's a version where I thought I saw. Maybe I'm mistaken. I remember there's some sort of popular show.
There is an English dub for Squid Game.
Okay, so
yeah,
the one I watched though is with the subtitles. Like I don't watch the English dub of it because I remember watching it and it was so jarring because some of the voices were so shit.
They're wacky.
Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't sync up.
It takes you out of it. You're like, what the fuck?
Yes, that's an example of I watched the subtitles for that show, right? So, but yeah, there's other things like these that I've watched just all the English versions essentially, except for Boy and the Heron, because that was the first film I actually got to watch in theaters post me being a Miyazaki fan, because at the time when I actually got into his movies, he literally just released Wind Rises. So whenever that came out, that's probably when I first or was about to come out and I didn't catch it in theaters. I may have watched everything. I may have got it. Wind Rises may have came out in theaters when I had seen the rest of his movies. Actually, I take that back. But anyways, but yeah, I just kind of fell in love with these worlds, these fantastical worlds when I actually got around to watching them. So I was kind of late to the Miyazaki whole thing too, because he's been doing stuff since the 80s, early 90s, right? So I was kind of late to the party in that. But once I watched one, I ended up, going out and getting all the rest of them and watching them. I own all of them on Blu-ray, right? So I mean, like I watched them many times before they went on Netflix, and then when they went on Netflix, me and Christine rewatched all of them over the course of a couple weeks, like a marathon of them. And like I said, later on, we're gonna have rankings for you guys, because there's like a power ranking I have that on my phone of my favorite of the films, right? So yeah, I love this movie. I think it's a great movie. I'm glad that you got to pick it, because it's rare that we actually you can definitively say on the show this is my favorite movie, because we always have to pick one every few episodes that we do. So yeah, really cool. And I don't know if this is my favorite Miyazaki film, but it's definitely up there. Stay
tuned to find out.
It was at one time. It was at one time, though. I will say that. Like when I first seen this was my favorite movie of his, and it was probably one of the first that I've watched of his as well. So, but yeah, just things that come to mind with this movie, like you said, I wrote down whimsical, magical, creative, inventive. I truly think this is his most visually impressive film, but lacking for me in story. There's deeper themes in story, I think, in some of his other movies in comparison to this one. But I mean, we'll get into it as we talk about the movie itself. But yeah, and then there's if we're gonna go on and talk about Miyazaki as a director and the themes he has in his films later on, I got some notes on that kind of stuff too, because I feel like once you kind of get immersed in his world, there's a lot of themes that pop up throughout a lot of his films as well that I kind of learned to enjoy and point out, and I kind of like can see now after watching all of them, right? So it's really good. So, all right, Jay, I'm most interested by what you have to say about this one. So this is, I think, your first time watching it.
It's my first time watching really any anime, period.
Wow.
So you just took my virginity away. Thanks, Julie.
Amazing. Congratulations. Popped your cherry.
That's it. Pop goes the weasel.
Happy Pride Month.
Oh, I found it weird, obviously, for me, just because in the sense that I've never watched one, so it's the first time. I mean, I had even my nephew pulling my leg to like breaking my balls to watch it after I told him we were going to be doing this one, because I go, I don't have Netflix either, right? And he's like, well, here's a site that you can watch it on, some Anna Watch, Annie Watch, or whatever the heck it is. That he watches it on. But yeah, so there is some places like you can see it out there. But I thought it was a trippy fucking film. First of all, I didn't know what was going on the first time I seen it. Like I had to. This was a rewatch. Like this, there's been a few times I put it on. I had to put it on because there was some crazy stuff. And I mean, I also want to get into the type of like drawing and artistry and the way they kind of filmed it in a sense, but it still feels like a coming of age story in a sense. But is it also a dream sequence? Is another thing that I had to ask. So I mean, there's a few things in my head that had me tripping out in that sense, and it probably is good to go in there, maybe clear-headed and watch it that way. But Nico kept insisting that I get intoxicated when I watch this film. So,
well, to be fair, you told me you were having a hard time getting into it. To be fair, yeah. You said you were having a hard time getting into it, and shout out to your nephew, because like I'm glad that he also helped convince you and get you there, because I remember the last conversation we had, you said that, and then at that point you were kind of a little bit more invested. I mean, and you also did say I kind of want to do right by Julie, because I said, I made it clear this is one of her favorite films, so I'm like, you need to properly watch this one, right? So I'm like, you need to give it a fair shot, because I get it. Sometimes it's hard to get into something, and that's what I said. So I said maybe that's the route you need to venture into this world.
To your credit, Jay, conceptually, it is a wacky fucking movie.
Yes.
Yeah. It is. It's very like ADD setup, the whole thing, so it can be kind of hard to follow. It's very scatterbrained.
Yeah.
Conceptually, so I can understand how you were watching and you were like, what the fuck is going on right now? I can totally understand how that happened.
But if you eliminate that, I found if you eliminate the weirdness from it, in the sense of the character styles and what the heck I was looking at that moment, there is a storyline there. Whether that comes off in the English version as opposed to the dubbed version the right way out. I've heard the same thing that Nico said, that sometimes the dubbed version doesn't come off the same way with a subtitle, like without subtitles.
From what I've heard and read about it, like the dubbed version doesn't deviate too hard from the Japanese version. There's two particular parts in which she says something. There's actually three. There's three particular parts where she says something out loud just to kind of explain, because like where she first approaches the bathhouse, she says out loud, "Oh, it's a bathhouse," because like that's not a thing that really occurs in Western culture. So like he kind of wanted it to be clear that it's not a brothel, and it's like it's a spa. With like a bathhouse doesn't really mean the same thing here that it does there.
Right.
There still is a level of confusion with the word even itself, but it was like sort of slotted in there to make it clearer to an American audience. Like that's what we were looking at. There's also another part where she goes, "Oh, he's a dragon." And like that's not in the Japanese dub. And then there's the end sequence in the car where they're having a little conversation off screen. That's not in the Japanese dub.
Oh, interesting. When she meets back up with her parents, you mean? Or
when they're driving away and they're not on
yeah.
screen, and she's
And
like,
you just hear
"Oh,
the audio where she's like, "Oh yeah, a new home and school," or whatever. That whole line.
yeah,
Oh,
that apparently is not in the Japanese dub."
I really like that they added that part at the end, though. I like
Yeah.
that final line.
From what I read, like, yeah, hopefully I'm not misquoting, but that's something I read earlier.
Okay.
That, yeah, but from everything else I read, it didn't seem to deviate too hard from what was actually being said in the Japanese dub.
Well, I also know the type of guy that Jay is, though. Like sometimes, like he'll overanalyze shit. So I told him just to enjoy the ride. Like I said, just enjoy the journey of this character, because there is probably some deep themes and thinking going on in this movie. You can definitely take it that route, but you don't need to. There's literally something to enjoy visually pleasing
at face value.
At all times of this movie. And I honestly think anyone can find something that they enjoy in this film. Like, I think like there's so much going on throughout the movie just visually that you can really just kind of take it from that viewpoint. You don't have to kind of go delve deeper into maybe some of the meanings or the reasonings for things that are going on, because I think there's going to be still, at least for me at the end of the day, there is some things that are going to be still lost in translation in terms of like just culturally, right? Like I think like there's like Japanese people seem to be very deep critical thinkers, I feel like. So like there's a lot of things in these films, well, they'll just explore a theme, but there isn't really a point sometimes to certain things that happen in them. They're just exploring certain, at least for me, like I'm somebody who I feel like I need to know the meaning of everything when I'm watching some stuff. So that's why I told Jay, like, don't be so critical like about it. Like don't analyze everything. Just kind of go for the ride, right? So did you end up doing that, Jay, or did you learn to enjoy it as a result of that? Or
I mean, I still tripped out. I mean, like I said, I try not to overthink it, because I see what you're saying about the overthinking. You could get really lost in a lot of the stories, a lot of the story meanings in behind some of the scenes that are going on, if you really think about it, right? But yeah, I tried to give it that open look. Like it's really full of what's that word? Like Julie, you said it right. It's really an ADHD fucking nightmare, to be honest with you.
Kinda.
Right? And yeah, you really got to. I had to sit down and focus. At certain parts. The first one was just a crazy ride. I was like, what the heck am I watching here? Like,
Yeah, it's a thing that's sort of endemic of his movies. I've used this phrase before, and I'm going to use it again. Is that the structure of the storytelling? It's not spoon fed to the audience that like, this is happening, this is why this is happening, here's an explanation of what this is. It's not spoon fed to us as the viewer. It's just, this is the setting, this is why it is, or this is just what it is, no questions. Like, it's just, it is the way it is, and we're not supposed to know any more than what they're giving. And I appreciate that about, because like I feel like in American, it's not true of all North American style filmmaking, but it is true of a lot of it, where they will have a character that's just a dumbass that they're using as a vessel to explain things to the audience about like why this is happening or why this is the way that it is.
Yeah.
And they don't really do that at least in his stuff. I don't have a huge breadth of experience in Japanese filmmaking particularly, but in these movies, it's just like, this is a world that we're in. It's weird. That's just the way it is.
I mean, I was mostly even pulling from my experience, like reading manga, because like, again, there's certain things in mangas that I've read that culturally are more relevant to Japanese culture. So I, and I've watched other Japanese films too, for that matter. But I mean, like yeah, I just feel like some stuff I still like. Here's the thing, like, and I know this is your pick, so maybe you did a little bit more in terms of your legwork on like actually looking into stuff like about this film, or maybe you're at the point that you watched it so much you're just at that point like trying to learn and absorb everything you can about the movie. But I really tried not to do that before this conversation, because there's actually even a movie podcast I know that just ranked this. I put the actually the clip up in the chat last week, that just ranked this as one of the 25th most important films of the century. They put this in their list. And I love that. I like watching that show. I did not watch that episode because I did not want to learn more about this film, I kind of just wanted to go into this conversation and actually see what you guys felt and like your impression of certain scenes and meanings about stuff in this film, because there's a lot of stuff that I feel like this is another movie you can revisit and look at things differently certain times as well, and learn different things about yourself or about the film. Honestly, it is a good rewatchable movie. So I can see why you watch it every 6 months or whatever, like you said, right?
It's such a comfort movie to me. Oh my God. I don't know why. And it's just the right length too. Like, it's long enough. That's the other thing too, is the original the original storyboarding of it. It was, he had to cut a lot of the fat, and the original one was going to end up being over 3 hours. So he ended up getting rid of a lot of the eye candy stuff, he said, and trying to get it down. But that's why it might feel kind of disjointed at times, because there's bits and pieces of the storytelling that he was doing as he was storyboarding that are kind of missing. So there, at times it does feel like there's little bits and gaps, but like,
that makes sense. I actually was just telling Jay this the other day when we were talking about it. I told him about how like he storyboards, because I've looked at a lot of his art books. Like, he does these really beautiful like watercolors illustrations sometimes. You have that one? Yeah, see? Like,
not this one. Not this one.
So he has an art book for every one of his films. Yes. Okay. So he has art books for every one of his films. This is just a master class of animation, these movies too. His studio, the Miyazaki stuff, Studio Ghibli. Like, it's like, like next level, like animators honestly working for him. And he does all that, like, because sometimes with films, they bring in another person, like even comic artists. I know a lot of comic artists that have storyboarded for films, to break down the scenes, to kind of figure out, Jay, before they actually bring it to life on screen, right? And I know we were having this conversation about this, and he does all that stuff, right? Like Miyazaki, like he does all the storyboards and stuff like that. So I'm not surprised that some stuff didn't make it to the screen. He actually also wrote and drew one manga as well, like full length manga in his life, which is the Nausicaa Valley of the Wind film that he did. That was his first. I think it's actually even his first film, if I'm not mistaken, but that's based on his manga. He actually did a manga prior to his filmmaking period of his life. There's a really good book about him. I need to buy it. I forgot what it's called, but there's a novel too that's about it. It talks about all of his process and everything like that. It's apparently supposed to be amazing. But yeah, I just think, like, Jay, I know you watch a lot of animated stuff, but if you're gonna watch like a film to talk about like this is honestly the best type of animation. Like, this is honestly like like I said, like masterclass.
Creme de la creme.
Yeah, this is like, anything else you watch after this will not meet the standard of these films, honestly, in terms of, at least in my opinion. Like, that's how good they are.
I don't understand anime art, to be honest with you. At the end of the day, I don't. It's just
That's
not
fair.
something that's visually attracting to the eye in that sense. It's a lot. It's intense, right?
Hot take.
So maybe that's why.
I actually think also Jay didn't grow up with it like we did, though. Like,
I didn't either, though. If you think of, okay, there are bits and pieces of exposure that I've had. Like, I've had exposure to some TV show stuff that is technically anime, I think. Like
Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, like
Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon,
that's all anime.
Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon,
anime. That's all anime. That's what.
But I wasn't like super hard into it. It was just like limited exposure I had to each of the, mostly because my brothers were into it.
But it was around though.
But it was around, yeah.
Jay wasn't aware of all that.
I wasn't in. I just wasn't into that. Like, there's just a different time in my life. I guess that couple of years makes a big difference in certain things that maybe it's just the type of stuff that because it fell in a weird time where I was, somewhat growing up as a teenager and didn't get into it.
Right.
In that sense, really. Right. Okay. So even like, I mean, I know who Sailor Moon is, and obviously I know Pokemon and all that stuff are because of these guys.
Card Captors, Inuyasha, Avatar.
I mean, still, I know Avatar, but there's not really anything else.
Avatar: The Last Airbender, not Avatar: The Blue Guy.
Oh, okay, wrong one. Then I have no other. So I have no other knowledge of this. It's just like I was like to my nephew, "Yeah, you want to write my review for me?"
Cheating. I had another point. It's from way earlier, and sorry to pull it back, but to your point about the voice actors, Nico, I found okay, this might just because I watch too many cartoons, but a lot of those people are very recognizable to me, but it's
Yes.
mostly because I've heard them.
Yes, same. No, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I
okay,
agree
okay,
with you there. But when
Jason Marsden is up there, like top fucking.
Oh, James Marsden was in this? I didn't know that.
Jason Marsden is Haku.
James Marsden. Who's
No.
Jason Marsden?
That's Max Goof, dude. That's Goofy's son.
Oh, okay.
He's in lots of stuff.
Okay.
Davey Chase was not really much of a voice actor. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right, but she's Donnie Darko's younger sister.
Okay.
And she was in something else really, really popular. Hold on, it's gonna drive me nuts if I don't. Oh, she was Lilo.
Okay.
Michael Chiklis. What's his
name? Michael Chiklis is the dad.
He's the one guy I did recognize in the actual.
Tara Strong is huge in the cartoon community.
Yeah.
Roger Bumpass is Squidward.
That's a cool name.
Yep. John Ratzenberger is huge in Pixar.
He's Squidward. Okay. See, I don't
Susan
know.
Egan is Meg in Hercules.
Yeah, so there's notable animation names here, not notable like actors though. Like for the most part, yeah.
No, you're right. Like there's no like box office appeal for those names. I'm just saying like they hit in spots, and I'm like, I fucking know this voice from childhood.
That's what shocks me though, is like I agree with you because there's probably a lot of I also felt the same, but when I looked it up and I didn't recognize any of the names, I was like, oh, I guess I don't really know names as much like of animated voice actors. I know some, but usually it's people that have transitioned over to doing that more, that have like more of acting credits. I feel like is the ones I recognize usually. Right?
Shout out Jason Marsden, he's my boy. There's so much Jason Marsden stuff from my childhood that I love, particularly Max Goof. I fucking love him. He was in Static Shock. He was in The Weekenders. He's Tino in The Weekenders. He was in he's Hocus Pocus. He's the cat in Hocus Pocus. He's Binks.
Oh, okay. I know that too. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, he's in all kinds of stuff.
Who was the witch?
That's Suzanne Pleshette. She actually died after this.
Oh, because that voice sounded familiar to me.
She was in.
She reminded me of the lady from Beetlejuice, just a cartoon version. You know, the one that's smoking a cigarette.
Right.
I thought, hearing her voice, she reminded me of Cloris Leachman, I think is her name. Okay. I thought it was her.
Yeah.
Just that kind of gravelly sort of smoker's voice. But I guess she was she had a theater career, and then she was in The Birds.
Oh wow! So I've seen that, but I wouldn't have recognized that. But
yeah.
No, I'm looking at her credits right now. She did a bunch of things though, so yeah, that's pretty cool.
But I guess this was her last film that she did.
Okay.
Yeah, where is her? Here we go.
Oh, she was on the Bob Newhart show. I've watched that. Okay, yeah. That's an older show. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but I'm familiar with that show. My mom used to watch it a lot, so I've seen that. And this is probably the one where they're in the lodge, if I'm not mistaken. Probably the one in. Yeah. Okay.
Looks like she did a lot more TV stuff.
I definitely know her. Yes, I know her. Yes.
Is it Bob Newhart? Is it the one with? Is that the one with? Is my brother Daryl? My other brother Daryl?
Yes. I believe it's that one that she was on. Well, because he had 3 shows. Oh, okay, never mind. No, this is the other one because he had a couple of different shows. I think this might be the other show that he did. Anyways, I know we're right off topic here, but yeah, that's.
But yeah, just on the subject of voice actors and shit, and yeah, like John Ratzenberger is huge. He's in all kinds of Disney Pixar stuff. He's the circus leader in A Bug's Life. He's P.T. Flea. Okay. He was the piggy bank in Toy Story.
Oh yeah.
He was
Cheers.
Nope, it's John Ratzenberger.
I thought that was the dude from Cheers, the mailman.
He's no, I don't know who that is. He was in Ratatouille. He was one of the waiters.
Same guy. You don't know. That's the dude from Cheers.
I don't know who that is. I haven't seen Cheers. I have not seen Cheers. I don't know.
Oh, I didn't even know he was a voice in it. Who's he in this movie?
Eisenberger?
He's
That's Cliff.
That's
Cliff from Cheers.
He's the assistant manager. He's the guy that's like when he's running down the hallway saying, "Now's the time to beg for money." He's like singing the song.
Oh, yeah, he's in Wall-E. Yeah. He's done lots of toys. Yeah, that's what I mean. You said the piggy bag, and I'm like the dude from Cheers.
I don't know.
No, he's the slinky. He's a slingy dog, I think, in Toy Story.
That's Ernest. Is the slinky dog. Ernest from the Ernest Scared Stupid. That guy. He's the slinky dog from Toy Story.
Oh, okay, the pig.
You can literally the pig is this guy, the one she said. You can literally see the age gaps going on right now.
Sorry.
In terms of our references here. She literally knows all his animation credits for like Cliff from Cheers.
Yeah. And Tara Strong is huge. Tara Strong is a Powerpuff Girl. She's Timmy in Fairly Odd Parents. She's in all kinds of shit. And she just plays the baby.
No, it's a great examination of the cutoff of like the things that we know.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Didn't somebody speaking of Cheers, didn't Norm just die or
yes, Norm, I was just gonna say.
Norm just died. Yeah.
So who gets his teeth now?
So Cliff
who gets his teeth?
I don't know. That's true. Yeah. So Cliff was his best friend, like the guy that sat with him on Cheers.
Okay.
Yeah.
The postal worker. Yeah.
The postal worker. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, bro. I know all that kind of stuff.
So there you go. So Jay was watching Cheers when we were
watching Yu-Gi-Oh. We were watching Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z.
But I also was exposed to a lot of that stuff because my mom used to watch that stuff. So like I was exposed to a lot of my early sitcom knowledge.
My mom just watched Days of Our Lives, dude. I didn't watch anything else.
My mom still watches
My grandmother watched the soap opera.
My mom watched Days of Our Lives, and my dad watched Cops.
Yeah. So
every day.
Yep. Okay, so shall we move on to themes and ideas and
yeah,
all that?
Yeah.
So I've obviously, because I've seen this movie so many times over the last however many years it's been, a lot of this is I did a refresher on this run for like you were saying, like I did do a bunch of research to make sure, like fact check myself. But a bunch of this was stuff that I'd looked into before, obviously being such a fan of the movie and a fan of the Studio Ghibli stuff. Like, I just had like this sort of base level background of like what's sort of going on. But I did run a refresher on it. There's a lot of disjointed kind of main themes to this movie. Probably the most standout of which is the whole spiritualism aspect, which is very prominent in Japanese culture, or at least traditional Japanese culture. This sort of Buddhist kind of folklore, that everything has a life and everything has a spirit, and that we should be kind and mindful to all things, all elements of nature. And so that's obviously a huge theme for this. She is like entering into the spirit world, and all of these elements of nature have spirits. There's river spirits. There was all of these like food-based spirits. There's all these different elements of things that have life to them.
Just in general, that is one of the biggest themes in all of his films, though. Spirits are like in almost every one of his films. There's a spirit element to it. I mean, this is the literal spirit world one, but there's all kinds of nature spirits and sprite spirits and like all these like certain things like in all of his films. That's like definitely an ongoing theme in the Miyazaki's world, right? But that's actually what I was going to ask you. I mean, it's kind of also part of my questions thing, but was that what this was? Was this like the go between, like, was this like not purgatory, but like a stop in between going to the afterlife? Was the bathhouse representative of just something that is in between the afterlife and like, you know what I mean? Like, that is what it is, right? Okay. That's my interpretation of it as well, but I wasn't, because even like that bridge is almost like the river Styx in a way, like essentially, right? Like
there is, I want to pull the specific thing here to make sure I don't misquote, but it is basically the literal translation of either the title of the movie. I think it's the title. It had to do with, it's like it had to do whatever this tidbit was that I found was that I wish I could fucking find it quicker. I should have just jotted it down. But essentially, she's crossed into the spirit world, and some other part of this was you were returning from death. Like, her coming back across the river was supposed to be returning from death. Like, she has emerged a new person. But it was also sort of this.
I didn't think of it that way. Like, she is emerging. Okay, that's interesting. Okay,
I forget what the actual thing was. I forget.
What's that, Jay?
I feel like it was something to do with and more of your strengths and all your inner personalities as well would bring it out. Like, it was defining a lot of who she was. Like, when she came back, in that sense, like all those characters in there. From what I got from the characters, they were all like parts of like her, like being either scared and courteous or genuine or kind. All those different types of characteristics. Being strong.
Well, I was gonna say, like, my whole thing was like, I wasn't like, my interpretation of it was that they were like, there's also a lot of wandering spirits, like lost souls that were there, like almost like people that were like, I felt like it was like almost like a purgatory thing, because this was the go-between between the afterlife and like her leaving that world through the tunnel and accessing it through the tunnel and then going over the bridge. I thought that was like her passageway, essentially. That, like, remember like when they told her like hold her breath, like I thought that was because like that's why she got sussed out there, is because like they found they're not supposed to have humans there, because that is like basically the afterlife almost, like, or the way to the afterlife, right? Like, that was my interpretation of it.
A weird smell to them.
Right.
So, okay, she's got so here it is. This is part of the whole supernaturalism of the whole thing. The use of the word kamikakushi, which is the title of the movie in Japanese, which to translate literally means hidden by gods. It's it is a verdict of social death in the living world, in the human world, and coming back to this world from kamikakushi is social resurrection. So there's also this element of when she enters this world and she loses her name, this is supposed to signify the end of her childhood, the end of childlike.
Okay.
So it is sort of the still coming of age kind of theme, but it also is like she is crossed into the spirit world and she is not meant to be there because she's human. So there is this element of like death and resurrection.
And then she loses her childlike innocence in a way.
Yeah.
Okay. I get what you mean. Yeah. Oh, I didn't take it as that, but that makes a lot of sense, actually, now that you think of it, because I mean, I definitely thought there was a coming of age element, but I couldn't really put my finger on like, I think
that was the no-face guy.
Well,
I feel like that was the no-face character of his there, right? Like that you have on your shirt there, Julie. I feel like that was her saying goodbye to like that old part of her, because naive.
I mean, you could think of it in that way. There's a little bit more to his kind of character type, a little bit, like just there's a little bit. He's like he's like an analogy for like a couple of other things, but like it could be. He's supposed to signify where the fuck is that bit about it?
Greed, I wrote that down. Theme that was a lot in this film for whatever reason. I don't know why, but it is a big part of this, from the parents turning into the pigs, literal pigs, right? That's how I think
that. So the parents,
terrible fucking parents. Like they're just like,
it wasn't their fault.
Well, it didn't help.
The parents, that whole bit is a commentary on they are literal capitalist pigs.
Yeah, okay, that's what I took it as too. Okay, because there's just the way they're like, oh yeah, don't worry about. There's no one here about the bill. Let's just start eating. Like, and then like and then like, yeah, they kind of gave in to themselves, and then they literally turned it. I don't know how on the nose you want to get like with that one. Like that was like they turned it
That's
like a disgusting.
That's what it's supposed to be. Yeah,
Okay,
that's that. They're
but why
so
is that
like
very? I don't know why that's in there. Like that's what I mean. Like why did they choose to like comment on like greed in this movie? It seemed odd.
It's huge throughout the movie, but it's also like it's kind of a commentary on like Western consumerism invading Japanese traditional value.
Ah, okay.
Because if you think about like
politics always involved.
They show up driving an Audi fucking and they show up driving an Audi and he's like, don't worry, daddy's got credit cards and cash, and they're in Western clothes.
Yeah.
And like
pick up on that part of it.
The spirit world, this is all from research. This is not me coming up with my own fucking ideas here. This is all
no, but I mean, you can see that. You almost look like a white guy there sitting in the car driving. Yeah, for a second, I was like, what the heck's going on here?
He shows up driving in
home. They're talking about their new home. They're gonna go to their new home, and then he's an asshole who just like cuts through the woods, like no disregard
for his family. Yeah.
He's like, don't worry, we've got 4-wheel drive. We're in the Audi fucking what is it? It's they said it in here somewhere. It was like an Audi
I know
on the S4 or something, whatever. So yeah, he shows up in the Audi. He's got crazy 4-wheel drive, whatever. He goes in and he goes, don't worry, I got credit cards and cash. And they're dressed very Western. Mode. And he didn't have eco mode, not at all. Like they're dressed very traditionally, not traditionally. They're dressed very European, and they cross into the spirit world where everything is more traditional Japanese for the most part, except for Yubaba. Yubaba is very European. Everything in her fucking office is very European decor. She's got very European clothes. And she's obviously got a lot of greed element to her. She's the bathhouse witch, but she's also kind of the money witch. Like she's like her name, like Yubaba is literally bathhouse witch, and Zeniba is the money witch, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
Oh, I didn't. Because is that what their names mean in the translation? Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. I didn't. No, well,
Zeniba doesn't really strike me as money witch because she lives in her little cottage in the woods, but whatever. She's also got very European style stuff going on over at her place in the cottage, and she's dressed very European as well. So there's a lot of commentary on like sort of and also like the theme park. The theme park, it's a failed theme park where there is a traditional Japanese bathhouse in the theme park. It's sitting amongst all of this weird theme park fake bullshit with neon signs and stuff. That's also like supposed to be a commentary on like the failed fusion of Western and Japanese culture.
Oh, see, I didn't pick up on any of that. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Like it merging together in that sense. Like it failed because they're not.
It's kind of it's supposed to be like it's a commentary on like modern Japanese cultural confusion. Yeah, because they're trying to meet. Yeah, they have this so much Western influence.
Yeah. It's no, for sure. There's a whole period of that where they basically lost a lot of their culture. Like that, the reason why the samurai went to the wayside, not the waistline, is because Western civilization came in and started living there, and then they basically lost a bit of their That's why it's actually explained in the movie, The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise. But they get into they do get into that about how the westernization of culture, like she's referring to, changed them, and they lost some of their culture as a result, or the ways that they were basically moving forward, like that they learned to live by, and that's why it's so important. Yeah, that makes sense that actually that's the case in this film. That went right over my head. But the whole greed aspect with No Face, even with the gold, he offers it to her and she doesn't want it. She refuses, right? Like that's definitely a theme there. But all those bathhouse guys, they go crazy, right? And then he literally, like, the whole greed will consume you. He literally eats them, No Face. He literally eats the people in the bathhouse, right? No, but that is a thing about consuming people, right? Like that's what my interpretation of that was as well, was that the greed element, right? Does that make sense? Like to you guys?
No, totally. Now that you're saying it like that, it does. I was wondering why he was getting so big, and and he just started eating the people and going.
Right.
it was visually, for me, it was but honestly, I was thinking that when I was watching, like overthinking, I'm like, could it be greed? It could be like those, you could have been watching a whole bunch of movies mixed in one that this guy watched, even American Western movies and stuff like that. Who knows, right? And taking little bits and pieces out of everything. It's just so weird how you can relate all that, right? With this character greed, but also, uh, carelessness and
But that's what throws me off, though. It's not really just about one thing. There's so many, like, I mean, even the things that Julie's mentioning that we didn't catch, like there's so many themes and things he's kind of commenting on through the story in this film, right? But you don't need to pick up on any of those things to really enjoy it. But yet, if you do want deeper meaning behind some of the things, there clearly he had, things he was trying to convey through this film, right? Like, that's why a lot of movies, there's just one theme, right? Like, this is a film about greed, right? Where this is like, greed is just literally like one of the things that he's trying to convey in this movie, right? That's why I'm like, why is that in this film? That's what confuses me. I'm just like, I don't know why this is thrown in there with everything else. The coming of age thing makes sense. The Japanese culture thing makes sense. I don't know why he chose to but I guess that also has to do with, like you said, American culture.
It's a commentary on the Western consumerism and the confused ideologies of like post-war Japan.
That makes sense now. See, the consumerism part I didn't get at all. Like, I didn't key into that. Like, I didn't figure that one out, so I didn't lock in on that idea. So that's interesting. Okay,
maybe that works. It works good. Maybe this is like sort of like their style of doing how they would. You know how when you go and watch movies nowadays, they kind of coincide it for adults to watch as well, and they make them think a little bit as opposed to just the kids that are like in the visual effects of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It almost seems like that type of style, right?
Kind of, yeah. Like, yeah.
It could make sense because it appeals to both. And that who brings the kids to watch them? You know what I mean? I mean, you can watch it right now on.
It's kind of like the face value of it is that kids can watch, albeit it's a little scary at times, but like the kids can watch it and enjoy it for the storyline of Chihiro and like, just sort of the hero's journey of the whole thing. And like follow that storyline. Whereas for the adult side of it, you're like, if you look a little deeper, there's all of these different elements of commentary that are going on. And a lot of his other movies, it's a lot more bold-faced than what it is here. Like, this is very much kind of subconscious, or what's it called? Like subtext to the whole thing. Like, yeah, like that Western consumerism one, it's not buried that deeply, but it is a thing that you wouldn't necessarily pay attention to.
Well, that's literally why I said at the start of this, the story is not as good for me in this film, but it's also probably because I didn't pick up on a lot of that kind of stuff, right? And this is really probably the first time that I've actually had to try to delve a little bit deeper into certain themes in this film, even after multiple rewatches, right? Just because I feel like the other movies, I got a lot of like the stuff he was going for.
Because it's more upfront. It's more upfront about like it's a lot of his movies have commentary on the war.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The Wind Rises, one of my favorite films of his. It absolutely has to do.
Howl's Moving Castle is also commentary on the war.
Yeah.
And these are all anime?
Yeah. They're all his movies.
They're all his movies. But every movie is so fantastical, like the world building that he does in them. Like you see certain similarities, but yet everyone is a fully formed different types of idea and characters and like a different type of world. And there's not really like you like to imagine. There's certain things that do pop up though in multiple films of his, like the soot sprites in this are actually also in Totoro, My Neighbor Totoro, which is kind of cool. Like there is certain characters, like all those the black soot
bouncing heads, all those little things.
No, not those guys. Little black things.
Yeah, the ones that were carrying the coal. They're in another one of his movies, like as well. Like, but there's only few things that kind of pop up, like to kind of show you that they're all possibly taking place in the same universe, right? Which is kind of cool.
What you can be damn sure of is in every fucking iteration, every movie of his, there's going to be a guy with a mustache that takes over his entire fucking face. What's his name? The Boiler Man.
Yes.
It's got the biggest mustache anybody's ever seen, but that guy exists in some version in every single one of his movies.
I don't know if I picked up on that, but once you said that, I'm like, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy with the legs in this one, right?
There's also the spider guy. There's usually also like a character with a massively oversized head, like Yubaba. Like
yes,
there's
Howl's Moving Castle. There is, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, there's always there's little like tropes that he has that sort of come through in all of his storytelling, which I find to be very funny.
Yeah.
One of the other themes in which I think this one's not buried too deeply, and it's also not like a huge plot point, but it is forward enough, I think, that we can pick up on it, is like environmentalism.
Yes.
That there's two particular moments in which they are making commentary on like humans are polluting the fucking planet, or like humans do not have respect for nature. And one of which is that the stink spirit that shows up, which is actually a river spirit, is so badly polluted that they can't even recognize him. And she's like, oh, he's got a thorn in his side while she's giving him a bath, and she pulls out a goddamn bicycle, which pops the cork for all this garbage that comes out, and then he goes back to being his river spirit self.
Man,
which
I
is
feel so stupid right now. I literally, the only reason I agreed with you there is because that is, again, what I had written down, a constant theme in his films, and I didn't even make that connection in this movie. There was no nature stuff. Again, it's there, but it's not addressed the same way because it is this dreamlike world. Like in like Princess Mononoke, it's literally about nature, like about the destruction of nature, like or even like me and Christine were talking about that, like Fern Gully, like that film, like it just literally is telling you about the destruction of the rainforest, right? Like it's the same thing in that movie. I did not even make that connection with the garbage that comes out of that character. It's
human encroachment and pollution
with this shit. Yeah, I didn't make that connection.
So to give a little bit of background on that is apparently the river, I don't know that maybe this isn't the Japanese dub, but like his name, the river spirit, whatever his name is, the river that he's actually based on, that whole bit and that whole point is based on a time when Miyazaki actually went to a river cleanup volunteer event, and they pulled so much garbage out of this river that's what inspired that storyline. That small plot point in the movie was inspired by an actual river cleanup he went to, where they found all this garbage and cleaned up this riverbed. The other point of environmentalism, sorry to interrupt, but the other point of environmentalism, which is the obvious one, is that Haku, who is actually the Kohaku river spirit, he can't get back home because the humans have destroyed the river and built condos. So he's actually stuck in the spirit world and can't return because his river is gone, which is another commentary on humans fucking up nature.
See, but how would you know that watching this unless you knew Japan, like what's going on?
That one I did know.
Culture. That one you did know. Okay.
That one I've come up on my own, but that was confirmed to me in my research.
I had no idea that's what it was based off of. Like, that's crazy. That's really
it actually makes sense now that you say it.
One of my questions was literally, why is this guy turned out to be a river spirit? I was like, what? Well, I'm glad you do that, or you did research for this episode, because I'm like, why? It's so random. I thought. See, but that's the thing. You could take it as face value, and you're like, well, this is weird. What an interesting movie. You don't need to know that. Enjoy it, because I still enjoyed it. But I'm just like, oh, I guess this is his commentary on spirits of like, but there is the nature element as well with the river stuff. Yeah, there you go. That's interesting.
He's stuck and he can't get back home because his river's gone and they built condos. So
that was such a swerve for me. I'm like, he's a kid, but he's a dragon and he's a spirit. And it turns out he's a river. It's like, what's going on here?
But that also, and that is the other obvious main theme. This also ties in with the sort of spiritual aspect of it, is that there is this huge element of fantasy where there is these transfigurative people and animal, like people that turn into other stuff, like this whole like metamorphosis component. Like it obviously is like a fantasy story, but it has all of these other elements of this traditional Japanese folklore this commentary on capitalism, this commentary on environmentalism, and this like part of it is like trying to pay respect to tradition, like it's a nostalgic element for old Japan, in a way, but it is sort of polluted by the Western consumerism and greed component. But yeah, that's pretty much all the thematic stuff that's going on from what I can tell.
Great job. No, that's that. No, you did your homework there. Good stuff. No, the greed's the only one I picked up on.
Thank you, Wikipedia, for confirming a lot of it.
But this is why I wanted to come in fresh. I figured like you would kind of know this or do your due diligence in that regard, right? So that's why I wanted to come here with not knowing that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's very interesting. The greed thing is the only thing I picked up on. But once you kind of get that element, the consumerism and capitalism and all that, like it makes sense. Yeah, that's very interesting. I went right over my head. Man, that's crazy. How about you, Jay? Did you pick up on any of that stuff or what?
Some of the stuff that you said through, I can now it makes sense. Like, it really does.
You can sort of connect the dots of
Yeah, but I mean, there was always each of those characters too, as well, is a piece of how they're helping her out or whatever, and like that even that like, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like, are you wondering if the character is a metaphor?
One's there to protect her. Yeah, for people to protect her and stuff like that, and watch out for her, and like it's always to a certain person that she's got to go find, right? Like it's not just everybody, because then Kermit comes out of nowhere, the frog, what's his name? That tripped me out when the little guy.
The one that shows up right at the beginning on the bridge.
Yeah,
it smells her as a human. Could smell her as that. You know, tell that she's a human because she's quiet. Yeah.
Oh, so, she's crossing the bridge, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then you know that there's a few of them. Like even the guy, he seems to the one that I guess it would be considered a radish spirit.
I love the radish spirit. Oh my god, I love that guy.
I love the derpy looking ducks. Those are the best.
Are great.
Well, I mean, the jumping heads are pretty cool too. I think those are pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, no, I mean, he was more protecting her too as well, like to help her get through this. Like, there's a lot of them that were trying to help her walk through this spirit world into this that I found now, right? And it does make sense, yeah, right. I mean, I don't know, it might not come off the same way to me as it does to you guys, but yeah, it does make sense about the aspects of everything, right?
Like there's also a bit of commentary on like the spirit world that she has entered is not free of
was that where the bird comes into, like, what is that, the eye in the sky?
The bird? The crow. I didn't, you know what, there's not a lot of commentary online about that character at all. Same thing with the three little head guys. There's not a lot of commentary on that either. Like, that's just like these weird elements of fantasy.
Yeah, I don't think
I didn't go too deep.
I don't think everything there's an explanation for, or at least I hope not. Like, because like I think some of them are just like him doing like you said, just more fantastical kind of ideas. I think he still likes creating things and doing different types of characters and this kind of thing, right? So I don't think everything meant to be something. Although for all we know, those three heads could be something from Japanese folklore that we don't know about. Could be. Right? I mean, I don't know. They
do kind of look like those traditional Japanese paintings. I just can't remember what they're actually called, but like it's just like kind of like a parody of I forget what the hell they're called. You see them on a lot of like Asian pottery and stuff. Anyway, I'm not sure what that, it could be a commentary on something, but I didn't find anything about either of those, the crow or the three little bouncing head guys. But there was something else to be said about the commentary of like the spirit world is not all kind and is not free of cruelty and is not free of susceptibility to sin type of thing. It was like the greed element was kind of a comment on like even the parts of the spirit world were susceptible to greed. They were susceptible to cruelty. They were very hateful towards Chihiro. She's just a child, and they were mean to her face. They were shit talking her. They didn't want to help her. There was a lot of a lot of people there that were like, fuck you, you're a human, we don't want you working with us, whatever. And she did have like a couple characters here and there that were willing to help. Also, like, even the Boilerman at first was like, no, I'm not going to help you. But then he flips on a dime and then pretends she's the granddaughter. That's really strange and funny. And Lynn, kind of same thing. At first, she's very mean and she is kind of backhanded at times, but she is kind of helping. Yep. Haku, same thing. He's like, wants to help, but he has to be mean to keep his cover, but he is trying to help. And like, yeah, so there's all of these elements of like, they're not putting her in a bubble just because she's a child. Mm-hmm. They're making it hard for her, whether that's, you know, done on purpose or not, but that's all part of the hero's journey, kind of part of it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I basically just wrote down, which basically, I mean, you, by the way, you like nuked my question.
Sorry.
No, I think I got one still that you haven't gotten to, but maybe you will.
I also have one that I'm like, I don't fucking know the answer to this, and I didn't look for it online either, so we'll get to that.
But the thing I wrote down here, which we basically, you kind of just touched on and confirmed that these elements did exist in this film, some of them that I didn't even pick up on, but are basically in all of his movies, is I wrote down spirits, aviation. There was not really aviation in this one, which is another fascination of
maybe the bird.
I guess that's true. And there's dragons flying. There is some flying.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Nature, magic. I also put down the childlike innocence, morals, coming of age type of stuff, Japanese culture and folklore. That's basically what I wrote down for ongoing themes throughout all of his films. Some that I actually didn't see here present in this story until you mentioned them with your rundown here. Another thing I wrote down here was that I thought another one of the things that like kind of they added onto the story, especially with her conversation with Zeniba, is the twin sister witch, right? At the end, was how she forgot about the river thing, and she says that whole thing about the quote. This is jumping ahead, but she's like, once you've met someone, you'll never really forget them. That she tells her. That is honestly like, it's like kind of like you don't know what you know, kind of like way of thinking. And since this is such like a dreamlike kind of like experience, it's kind of, that really struck me, that conversation, because she's right. Like, you, in the recesses of our minds, we don't really think of things on a daily basis, but it doesn't mean that those moments didn't happen. And it doesn't mean that those moments didn't help shape you as an individual either. So like, I think like that was really interesting that she had that conversation with her, because it was right before the end where she had to, she learned a lot about herself on this journey, and she had to basically, almost like you said, grow up or transform into another phase of her life by the time she left. So now that you kind of pointed those themes out, I honestly, I have a new appreciation and outlook on this film after this conversation already here today because of that.
Yeah. Like the rewatch is going to feel a little different now.
Yeah. So I did pick up on that. I really liked that line. I thought that was a really interesting thing that she said to her about that, because I don't think the way it was presented was all that good. Like, if we're going to talk about likes, dislikes, since we're kind of exploring.
Yeah, we're going there.
Here, I didn't like that part. Like the whole thing of her learning that this guy was the river at the end there. I felt the way that unfolded was like kind of weird, like, and misread.
Like the actual sequence in which she figures it out.
Like he comes and helps her, Haiku or whatever there. He comes and saves, he comes to Zeniba's there to basically get her and bring her back so then she can finally get out from under the witch there and get her parents back. But like, the realize that was a really interesting conversation. I really liked it. But then when she gets up in the sky with them and she's like, "Oh, I remember you. You're this river." I just thought the way that was presented to us, I felt like it didn't stick the landing for me. I was like, "Oh, okay, that's I mean, it's interesting now you say that is relevant because it's a river that the Japanese, destroyed or whatever. And that's why he couldn't go home. But I just thought like his realization of like, yeah, that was me that day when you lost your shoe or whatever. I was like, I don't know. Just the way that it got built up and then the payoff, I felt wasn't as satisfying for me.
It's it is sort of sprinkled throughout the movie in bits and pieces.
Right.
But yeah, I kind of agree with you there. It's like the way it's sort of laid on him.
Yeah.
Like the dialogue is a little bit odd, but maybe that's an issue of the English versus Japanese dub.
Translation, maybe, because I thought like if that is really what the meaning of that moment was, I should have stepped away from that being like, oh wow. Like meanwhile, I was just like, oh okay. Maybe it's because I didn't realize that that's what the relevance of it, right? It didn't hit for me, that part. I was just like, if anything, it just made it weirder for me at the end. I was like, oh, he was a river all along. Got it.
Yeah, like
that was like, oh yeah,
sort of
makes sense.
She has like these little flashbacks throughout the movie of like her shoe in the water and being underwater, and like this sort of mixed realities of like she's with the dragon but underwater, but it's also she's supposed to be smaller. It's from like earlier childhood. There's that. There's also when he says to her, she was like, oh, how did you know my name? And or something. He knows her name, and she like recognizes that that's strange that he already knows her name, and then says something about like how like he doesn't remember his original, like he was like, don't forget your name because that's how she controls you. And he says, I lost my name a long time ago, something to that effect. And then she says, oh, you have forgotten your name. And he was like, yeah, but funnily enough, I remember yours. And then he says like, we've known each other for a long time, these kind of things. So it is sort of sprinkled throughout, but yeah, it is kind of just sort of a drop all of a sudden as a plot point at the end.
Yeah, it's not even that it doesn't track or make sense now, especially with what you had mentioned, like they give the information that I didn't know about the whole river.
Right.
It just still didn't, the way it unfolded still wasn't that satisfying for me, because by the time you come to that conclusion when they're flying off there at the end, I just thought there was much like better things explored in this film than that part of the story, personally, for me anyways. But I did like, but that has to do with the whole memory thing about not forgetting certain moments of your life. And so that part of it I really like. Her stealing her name and her turning into Sen as the witch steals her name. That's also like a common theme with stuff, because names hold power, like with demons and stuff like that in the afterlife. Like if they, you know what I mean? Like, so that actually makes a lot of sense too, about the whole her stealing her name and using it against her kind of thing, because that's like that's been in a lot of other things that I've read, because that whole thing about names holding power, especially in the afterlife, that is a thing like that. So that makes a lot of sense. That I got right out, in the first watch. I probably got that, the whole element of it. So I thought that was pretty cool too. But that's pretty much what I had for the themes and kind of things that that I picked up on watching the movie.
A tidbit about the name thing, which I'm just trying to find my note here about it, but the kanji for her name, Chihiro, and I forget what her last name is, but it's, I think her name was supposed to literally translate to 1,000 journeys.
Okay.
Or 1,000 trials, or 1,000 somethings. I think it was 1,000 journeys. And when Yubaba takes parts of her name away and just changes it to 1,000, so that she's like stealing her individuality and her identity is what it's supposed to be.
Oh, okay.
The commentary on that, I guess, like yeah, there's something about that in here somewhere. Anyway, it's just trivial, but where is, let me see. That's not it. Nope.
Yeah, because what I was looking into was because I just had to Google it. It's in folklore, it's referred to as the law of names. Knowledge of a true name allows one to affect another person or being magically. It is stated that knowing someone's or something's true name therefore gives the person who knows the true name power over them. So but the fact that her name is actually derived from like actual like root words, like you said, that means something as well. It kind of has like even more meaning then in that sense, right? I didn't know that was the case with her name, so that's really cool. Again, it's the fact that we don't know, like you said, the kanji of the Japanese letters and stuff like that. Like I mean, we don't know that stuff. I don't personally know that, right? So that's
it was about like the kanji for chi and sen both use the same, it's the same character, but it means 1,000. They're different reads, different pronunciations of the same character. But yeah, her entire name was meant to say 1,000 journeys or 1,000 paths or something. Okay. And when she takes away the rest of the name, it just changes her name to 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't know there was that many meanings behind people's names in this.
Well, I mean, particularly in Asian cultures,
the Asian the culture, history, and stuff like that. Yeah, you might understand it better.
Original Japanese, yeah. Sends that Chihiro means 1,000 fathoms or 1,000 searches, and then sen just means 1,000.
Okay.
So they've taken away her journey,
right,
and trapped her at the bathhouse, and she's just 1,000.
Which is why she had to stay there and work in the bathhouse. Yeah, makes sense.
And Yubaba is bathhouse witch, Zaniba is money witch, Kaunashi is no face. Bo is the baby, it just means child. Kamaji means boiler man. It's all very literal.
That's why I took that bathhouse also to be for like I said, the go-between for like lost souls, because everybody that was there was looking for something else, it seemed like, right? Like it was they weren't like she was at a very pivotal point in her life, and like you said, the river whole thing felt abandoned. He couldn't go back home, and like, the way he was going on. So yeah, that makes sense. That's very cool.
Yeah.
That whole bathhouse was, everybody had something that had some sort of like habit or bad like sense of power, like the person that they were. And she was, I noticed that she was just avoiding it all, and she wasn't really. She was just making herself try to do. I don't know if that had to do with that mentor. What's her name? That lady that she was talking to. If that had anything to play with it, like play into it.
Lynn, the one that is helping her.
Yeah, Lynn.
Yeah.
Right, making her understand it a little bit in there,
Mm-hmm.
But
that's another thing too. Lynn's like, "Oh, I got to get out of this place," but she could be trapped there too. Mm-hmm. But they don't really get into her backstory that much.
No, it was just. I remember there was just a couple quick scenes of that one. But I mean, that's the thing. Those are the parts maybe that they cut out, edited, or
it could be, yeah.
Because I think that would have had to be a bigger story in that sense. If that was a mentor in that sense, right?
I do have the tidbit about No Face here if you want to hear about that.
Like what his deal is?
Yeah, what the whole representation or like bit about him is.
All right, there goes my last question.
I mean, we can go back to it later. You know what? We'll save it.
Okay,
I've got it.
Bring that up later then, because I do have one directly related to him.
I've got it here.
This part of this movie and one of the most popular characters in this movie, hence your shirt and everything else, like that people recognize about this film that we haven't discussed yet. So yeah, save that for questions, because I think that's a very interesting part. I love that character. I don't know what his deal is. So if you have the answer to that, okay, I'm looking forward to that.
I have half an answer. I don't like if he's supposed to be a metaphor for something bigger than this. I don't have the full answer, but I do have the whole kind of idea of what he's supposed to represent as a character, kind of.
Okay.
Isn't it like all the temptations?
It could be. We'll talk about it when we get there. I'm gonna run through my likes and dislikes real quick. I obviously don't have much to shit on this movie. It's my favorite movie, but particularly like things that I find are very strong about it. Obviously, the music, the score for it is so. I don't know about you guys. Well, I mean, JT, this is your first.
That stood out.
Okay, so I'm glad to hear that.
Because I like this. I like always when it comes to the music in the scores and stuff behind the movies. I always like it, and that was something I was heavily focused. It caught my attention probably first, if anything, right?
Yeah, I think that there is people that are fans of his work. The score from this movie is kind of instantly recognizable in the wild. If you hear somebody playing on a piano, you can recognize. Usually, it's One Summer's Day, which I believe is the one we played at the beginning of the episode. Here, it's like sort of an instantly recognizable one from the film. That's but the score for this movie, like, I have a particularly strong love for a lot of the music in the Miyazaki movies. That's true of any collaboration between him and Joe Hisaishi, who is like a long time collaborator of his. I think does most of the scoring for his movies. It's this is another thing that is a little different, but like it's not. It's maybe different for his movies or from some of his other movies, but it's not necessarily different conceptually to filmmaking anymore, because there is that whole I forget what it's called, but this litmus test for like whether a female character has romantic interactions or whatever with a male character as part of the story structure. But this being unique in its approach to the story, that it's not relying on a romantic storyline to make the plot. Like this, there is this whole sort of line, this story thread of like, she has love for Haku and Haku has love for her, but it is not romantic in its intention. It is just childlike familiarity, and it's not relying on a love interest as a plot point to the story. So I do love that about this movie. And I said this before, the Japanese style storytelling is so different and refreshing as compared to North American storytelling, where everything seems to be spoon-fed to us to understand what's happening. I think that... So John Lasseter is the one that got involved for the... he's apparently a longtime friend of Miyazaki, who is some kind of big figurehead with Disney and Pixar. And he sort of spearheaded the whole move to market it to North America, and was in charge of like the whole team for the English dubbing of the film. That it sort of emphasized to the American film industry to take Japanese animation seriously as an art form. So this film was really important as like a groundbreaker for entering the North American market. And like as far as distribution and recognition is concerned, it was huge.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I just love about it. Was able to like bring it over here so it could be marketed to a wider audience and introduce us all to it.
Yeah, because I think that, like you said, the themes that he's exploring in this film is like, this isn't like your regular Saturday morning cartoon Dragon Ball Z type of anime type of show. This is actually, it's a much more serious film in many ways, but yet, like you said, it actually had people considering this a legitimate art form in Western market. Yeah, I get it. That makes a lot of sense, because it is so well done that it isn't just like your regular anime fare, right? I mean, for a lot of people in the 90s, that was like Akira and Ghost in the Shell and like awesome animes, don't get me wrong, but I feel like they were looked at as such, and they weren't looked at in the way that it was art. You know what I mean? Like
they weren't given the respect.
Yes, yeah. In Japan, yeah, but and people love those things. And like I said, like I was an early anime fan with Dragon Ball and other things, but it wasn't looked at like this. Like, yeah, I agree. Like, that makes a lot of sense that this was a huge breakthrough in that regard. Absolutely. Yeah. We were even talking about it last episode with the Kill Bill aspect of him having an anime element in that film, and them just throwing that in the first act.
Yeah.
This much. Right? Yeah, this much, but like not much, but it was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So no, I which one on here? Everybody got quiet.
Did you have anything you disliked about it that you want to comment on? Or something that you liked particularly?
I liked, I was trying to tell Nico the other day, and I didn't know how to put this the right way. I don't know if it's the style of filming, the way that they make the I thought it was kind of like comic-ish laid out, if that makes sense. Like, I don't feel like it was, I don't know if it was kind of drawn in. Is that type of art like a 3D style or 2D, or like, I'm not understanding, because then they had scenes where you had lighting and stuff like that would pass through. It was almost like two visual scenes, like something like this, right, where it would pass through, as you wouldn't see that in like a general cartoon or something of anything that I think I would have watched up here at any given point. It really, as in a cartoon thing, like where that fading transparency sequence plays out, or the red lighting in the background, those little bulbs, those little red things that were around everywhere. Yeah, I don't understand that type of
Red things.
layout in a movie. Like,
I think he's most impressed by the fact that it's not like it is traditional animation, but the look of it in and of itself is different than what he grew up watching in terms of.
Oh,
I think that's what he's trying to convey. I think it's just
there's no
the different
transparency
planes,
thing. Yeah.
different planes essentially. Like
yeah, that you can tell what part of a scene a character is going to interact with because it has the least amount of shading. That type of thing. That was so classic '90s cartoon.
Well, I just like the way it is here in this picture that we have in the background there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that kind of like overlay where in the background you see something different. You can still see the background of the actual where she is.
You're talking about like the scene, the water and the clouds in the sky behind her, versus like
you can see it transparent through the
handle.
people.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But also
through the people. I see what you mean.
Yeah, that too. But I mean, also this type, it's almost like an overlay. I feel like of stuff, like when they try to do scenes like I don't know. I feel like it's not as bubbly as bubbly 3D type of comic style. I don't know, and if that's visually.
Well, you've watched Pixar films. I mean, their animation.
I mean,
is like, you know what I mean? Like
theirs is not like it's more computer shit. No, their animation in that sense. This is more hand drawn, right?
Mostly hand drawn. There was computer elements to it, but it was mostly hand drawn.
Because so maybe that's where I'm, like all those types of cartoons are different in that style, right? And
well, that's why his animation studio is very good. That's why I said it's like some of the best animation. Like what you whether or not I understand what you're describing, what you're basically touching on is the fact that this is a very good looking animated film, right? Like that's at the end of the day, like
the way it plays out,
yeah, exactly. So there you go. I mean, I think that's just a testament to like the type of animation that they're putting out.
It's
right?
visually interesting. It's visually interesting that way, in that sense, because you're trying to figure out how they're laying it out and how they're passing it across, especially in a movie aspect. You can see their mouths moving and stuff like that, but the real craziness, it's more like plays out like a comic book when you're looking through different scenes on a comic book, and if that makes sense too. Or
the layout. I know
manga, of some sort.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize as it being like a Pixar movie just seems to be like flushed through, like it's nothing because it's mostly computer generated nowadays, right?
Right.
Yeah, a lot of it is digital.
Yeah, so this one, I don't know. It's pretty cool seeing that part of it, like that aspect of it. I like some parts, but like because of the cartoony aspect that I'm missing in like those newer types of films. Like even I had watched that Mulan, that's sort of like in a sense closest to what I'm gonna relate to is into this, but that had more of like a computer aspect to it, like in that sense where it's not really hand drawn, is like this kind of stuff and scenes played out per comic.
Mulan could have been.
Yeah. It's possible.
It was just different for me. I didn't know. I wasn't sure what type of thing, so I didn't know if I had liked it. That's why maybe it took a little while to get used to it. That's why when I watched it for the second time, it kind of a lot more things caught my attention in the sense of detail, right? Because I had to like process it the first time. There was so much going on. I was trying to overthink, and Nico, that was where Nico said, "Don't do it." But I'd already started overthinking it, right?
Yeah, so, like Julie said there, I just looked it up. Yeah, this primarily employs hand-drawn animation in this film, while some computer graphics and digital painting were used. The film's core animation process involved artists drawing and painting each frame by hand. So there you go. I mean, it makes a difference, right? This is why this movie looks the way it does, right? So like that's and I think it also helps from a storytelling perspective, like what you're saying about Miyazaki. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Miyazaki is that he does do his own storyboards and actually is an illustrator. So like it helps. It makes a difference, right? Because he's able to convey the story beforehand and then translate that to basically film, right? So I mean, it makes a huge difference, all that stuff, right? That's why they, like I said, he's like a master class in animation. Like that's why his studio is considered to be one of the best animation studios. It's because of the work, and he's hugely against AI, hugely against these kind of techniques that people are adapting these days. There was actually a popular app
uses all the time.
There was not to make art.
Yeah. He was actually very outspoken even more recently because there was a trend going around online where people were basically taking people's photos and Studio Ghibli, like Miyazaki, kind of animating. Like, so they would take a photo, let's say, of you, Jay, and you would take that and put it into this application that would basically create, like they do with Simpsons and all this other stuff that people have done online where you become a Simpsons character. They took the aspects of a Miyazaki animation and he fucking hated it. He saw everybody sharing this stuff and he was very vocal about what was going on and how much he despised like anybody.
It's like intellectual property theft.
Exactly.
Like
he's like, how dare you, like this, you know what I mean? Because you're looking at something that people are using. They're basically showing you how easy it is for them to create something that he created with his hand. You know what I mean? Like out of his mind, like his style, and they're basically
it's taking all the soul out of it.
Yeah. He despises that kind of stuff. So that's why it's like his like I like every quote I've seen or things this guy has said. He's honestly a pure creative genius, like honestly, like, and he cares about art like so much. I really respect everything I've heard this guy say when I've heard him in these interviews, and there's all these like video footage of this guy like they're just hacking darts in an animation studio. These old Japanese men going
classic. The good old days.
Yeah, it's great. It's great stuff. Like every quote that I've seen of this guy is pure greatest quote I've ever seen from Miyazaki. Yeah, there's all kinds of good ones. So,
what's kind of just a fun fact about how his workflow is too is that he obviously has his story structure. He is the director. He is the like storyboard artist. Everything. It does not have a script until he's doing storyboarding, and he lets the animation or the visuals build and depict the dialogue. So like he doesn't have a script until he's done storyboarding, which I think is interesting, and I don't know if that's very traditional of animation.
No, and I would say that like that actually the closest thing I could relate that to is back in the day, like Stan Lee with Marvel Comics, he created this thing called Marvel Style, where he basically would get the artist to draw the story, and then he would go in and put his dialogue in afterwards. But what would happen then was that the art, because he would give the artist full reign to kind of do what they did, but then when you put the words in, sometimes it wouldn't make sense to the story, and a lot of people just that use this as like to say, like, you know, years later would say that Stan Lee was basically just being lazy, but they actually coined that phrase Marvel Style and a new way of doing things in terms of, it was actually very innovative in a way, because some people still make comics to this day that way. Most people don't, because what they usually work with is a tight script when they do comics now. Like there's writers that will do a tight or loose script depending on the writer, give the script to the artist, and then he'll tell him a panel breakdown. Yeah, panel 1, I want a guy looking like this over in this direction. Panel 2, and then depending on the relationship between the artist and the writer, it can become looser with time, because they actually know how each other are gonna there's an idea that the guy will have in his mind, but then the artist will convey it a completely different way. So that's kind of interesting, that what you're saying about his style of doing it that way. And that's the way I'm relating it in that sense. But back in the day, they didn't really know any better. So this guy would sometimes get these guys to write, he'd be like, I don't have a script, just draw this. This is what I kind of want the story to be like. And then the artist would hand in the work and he'd be like, yeah, this is what he's saying in this panel. This is what he's saying in this panel. And sometimes things didn't make sense, right? So it's kind of interesting in that sense. I like what I didn't know he worked that way. That's very interesting to know that.
No.
That's very cool. So yeah, I didn't have anything else in terms of like my likes, dislikes. I think I described it all. I think great animation, great music, visually, probably my favorite film of his visually. So,
yeah, all of those sort of ambient kind of world setting scenes are so well done and so well designed, and they linger just long enough to give you time to appreciate the level of detail that's gone into the art. And those are some of my favorite scenes, where they just kind of give you this long kind of lingering look at the landscape, which is something that he's kind of known for throughout his movie career.
Anything to relate his stuff on, like, because like I said, this would be the first one. I'm finding it interesting just hearing your guys' aspects of it, how much you guys have understood this. But yeah, it is pretty for likes and dislikes and stuff like that. I'm still trying to process everything. I got 4 pages just every scene written out here, just so I can try to figure it out. And even just the different style characters and stuff like that.
I did the same.
Yeah. So I did try to watch it, like you said, for what it's worth, but fuck, it's interesting for one of my first animes. I'll tell you that much.
Well, I went into it trying to watch it that way too, and then I kind of went around and like tried to figure out the deeper meaning without looking into things, and I still came here and didn't understand the stuff this movie was trying to convey. So there you go. I mean, I went at it both ways, the way I told you to do it, and then I also went into it. I'm like, I've seen this movie enough. What is this movie really trying to convey? And I still missed half of what they were trying to say. So yeah, it's like I said, it's very layered and it demands multiple rewatches clearly, right? So
shall we get into
maybe this will spark something I can end up watching more anime, but just to see how
I'm hoping it inspires you to explore the catalog.
It is intriguing only because it's like just the story itself is intriguing, and the storyline, and I can see the aspect that they're going at. So it's a lot of his own characteristic style, like how you guys are talking. So I could see where that could get interesting. But I don't have anything to compare to.
Well, that's the thing. I will say, Jay, if you liked this enough, then definitely check out some of his other movies where I think some of the ideas are a little bit more clearer, and you're going to recognize certain themes like we talked about here today throughout the rest of his work. Like if you liked this, I think there's a lot of, there's a few other films I would recommend before anything else in his catalog after this, because I think this kind of just gets your feet wet just enough to kind of understand like his kind of like his films, right? So I think
boys love Porco Rosso. That is the one I think you should watch next.
Ranks low on my list.
Mine too, but boys love that one.
Boys love that one. What does that mean?
I don't know. Guys I've talked to that are fans of his seem to like that one, like rank it higher typically.
He's a great character, but I mean, it's just that, yeah, there's no deeper meaning for me.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's just a fun movie. So
might be easier to digest. That's kind of, it's forward as far as what it's saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I personally think that if you were going to go off from here, that you should watch Princess Mononoke. I would say watch that one.
That's intense, but yeah.
Anyways. Let's give him a crazy one, another crazy one to watch after.
Yeah, but it's got some of the elements of like layers to it, but not as much clearly. But it's very forward in what it's trying to say, but it is very adult in theme.
Yeah, that one's purely about like the destruction of the
environment, the nature.
Yeah, and yeah, that's the theme. I'll tell you right now, like that's what if you know that going into that movie, you'll be able to understand what it's trying to say. Like that's what I mean. I don't think that one's as there's not as much to unpack in that one as there is in this film. Clearly,
yeah, it's very cut and dry about what it's saying.
Yeah. So
yeah, this one feels like there's every scene is something different that you got to unpack and unfold. But then at the end of the day, is it really anything? It's just a dream sequence that part, and just on our car ride. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just falling asleep in the backseat of a car.
Yeah.
You never know, right? So,
scenes and quotes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I love every scene, like I just said, in which they are just showing you landscapes. So particularly that train travel scene where she's headed to the 6th station.
Yeah.
Where it's just kind of this ambient travel. There's not a lot going on story-wise. That is an amazing scene. That's a great setting.
Plus it's a train in the water. I mean, it's
cool as fuck.
Yeah.
There's also, they pass by this little island with a house on it. That is said to be inspired by something from Dragon Ball, and I just can't remember what it's called.
Kamehameha House. It's the Kami House.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Master Roshi's island. Are you serious? Is that what that is? Now the
I think it's speculated on by fans. It's not necessarily confirmed by him, to my recollection, but
so
anyway.
The Dragon Ball thing I could relate to this is that there's the Dragon Way. When he goes into the afterlife, there's a winding dragon path essentially that leads him there, and that he has to basically venture across. So that's what I kind of took as this whole bathhouse bridge kind of like area, was that's the way that I was able to relate that to Dragon Ball. So there you
go. I also love the Radish Spirit elevator sequence.
That was creepy. That was weird. That would have been a trick.
I love that one. That has one of my lines in it where they're interacting with the spirit, obviously, and then Chihiro turns to Lynn and says, "He's following us," and she goes, "Just don't look at him." And then he still follows them. I love that sequence. I also, another just kind of ambient scene, which, as I told Nico earlier, it's my desktop background on my computer. The scene where they're sitting out on the balcony eating dumplings together, and they're just kind of looking out at the water and talking about, all this rain happened. Of course, it's filled up the ocean, of course, it's a sea. There's all that rain, and they're just kind of having idle conversation while they're observing the landscape. I love that scene. And the other scene that just never fails to fucking kill me, I'm always laughing so hard, is when she trips down the stairs when she's like trying to be sneaky at the beginning of the movie, and she steps on that one and slips, and then she runs screaming down the entire staircase with this sequence where she's trying to be stealthy. Yes. And then the frog opens the window and he's just smoking a cigarette out of the kitchen. That scene kills me every time.
But do you ever remember doing that when you were a kid too, like tripping down the stairs like that and catching yourself and having to run really quick, like you're at school or something? Or
no, in the middle of the night, if you're trying to sneak around in your house in the middle of the night and then something like that happens, that definitely has happened to me. Yes, yeah.
No, like I've caught myself at the top, like let's say even catching myself going to school on the TTC at that time, where I'm at the top step trying to go down and I miss, and then I have to really start going down quick. And if I'm going to miss a step, I'm going to fall face first, But yeah, there's never any wall over there to save you. That was kind of crazy too, how she just ran face plant into the wall.
Yeah, there's so many concussions in this movie that she should have had. Like, she hits her head so many times. Maybe it was all a dream. The whole thing was a concussion nightmare.
Yeah, that's a good theory about this movie. Absolutely. Yeah.
One of the lines that really resonated with me, I wrote it down as soon as, like, when I was kind of thinking about it ahead of time, like before I watched it, I was like, I kind of knew what my favorite scenes were already because I've watched it so many times. So I was like, I've never really like thought too heavily about the lines. So I had my notepad out when I was doing the rewatch this time. And the first one I wrote down was at the very beginning where they're in the car and the mom says to Chihiro, "It's fun to move to a new place. It's an adventure." And that one stuck. And that's the first one I wrote down. Mm-hmm. The other one I wrote down is just a comedy line where Kamaji and Lin are kind of in the background when Chihiro is trying to save Haku in the boiler room, and she says, "What's going on here?" And Kamaji says, "Something you wouldn't recognize. It's called love."
Yeah.
And they're so sassy to each other. That dynamic is so funny.
Yeah. Is that all of yours, or
my other one is gonna come back to answer your question, so I'm gonna leave it.
Okay. Jay, what do you got? You got anything?
Well, so I just the little ones like a new home and a new school, right? And a bit scary, but and she says I think I can handle it. Stuff like that, like
I had that written down
little.
too.
I feel like it's like a coming of age stuff. This is where I think of it's that whole aspect when I was saying with that the see, and then Nico had this other one too that I think he said it in the beginning, right? Where it says once you remember, once you do something, you never forget, right?
Yeah.
Even if you can't remember it.
Yeah.
That goes back to what I think about when I relate like people lying and not telling the truth. Why not be honest in the beginning? Because you know what? At the end of the day, you're not going to remember that lie, and then you're going to have so many that you're going to have to remember.
Yeah.
If you need to keep the truth, right? So I thought that resonated, especially because they're saying it. That was her mentor. That what's her name? Zen.
Zaniba.
That was the other one. Zaniba, yeah. So those little things caught my attention, right? Now, I didn't have too many quotes because I don't know if, like I said, it maybe it didn't translate well enough in English in that sense, right? But
how about
I think you were just trying to pay attention to the movie too much to figure out what the hell was going on.
to figure out quotes, yeah. I'm trying to see like there was a lot of crazy. There's a lot of scenes that I like. I like the beginning scene because it just played out weird. It where it ended up where they just go into the like they veer off track and stuff, and they end up seeing the thing, that amusement park and that
Statue.
castle and stuff. Yeah,
Oh,
but
yeah,
when they got all crazy and they turned into the pigs, I totally went, "What the fuck am I watching now?" No, it did. It threw me for a loop, and I
it
think that
really
part
starts to go off the rails like right at the beginning.
right away, right? And I was like, okay, yeah, it's a little car ride, and then everything's fine. Next thing you know, they see it. They venture off track, and they end up in at an amusement park, right? But the scene with when she's riding that dragon, it just brings me back to like Never Ending Story, man.
Mm-hmm.
That was a scene that I like. Every time that they played out that part together, yeah, right.
Yeah. Which we have done a review of, guys. You can go back and check that out. That was one where JT's like, "What the hell are we doing talking about this movie?"
Yeah, but it's such a childhood thing, right? For me at least too, and for most people out there. But yeah, so but yeah, that brought me back to that, and then, in Japanese culture and stuff, the dragons and stuff were very symbolic and stuff like that. So I kind of got the aspect of that part, but just her going on her own and adventuring, that's just trying to figure out that amusement park and seeing the different people and seeing those things. That could probably take up most of the story, but for scenes, but general, all those weird characters you're meeting. I think my favorite one was the favorite scene was meeting the I don't know, the octopus looking guy with the glasses. That was kind of cool. Yeah, and he called her. He was calling her granddaughter, I guess. Right.
That I feel like that might be another part that is weird for translation. Like for him to just switch on a dime like that and be like, "She's my granddaughter," like that might be like kind of a thing they had to do to overcorrect with like not able to translate literally for something, because it does seem kind of weird and disjointed that at first he's like, "No, there's no jobs here, whatever," and then he gets caught talking to her and he was like, "She's my granddaughter."
Yeah. That I like the scene that you said with the radish guy or anything with that. I just couldn't understand what the heck it was and what was going on there. I didn't know if that's what a radish looked like or whatever. I just
character. They did call him a radish spirit at one point when they're on either getting off the elevator or getting on the elevator. Yeah, it's
a radish spirit. Yeah.
Well, yeah, more it was like I guess the quiet spirit, right? That's what they call him in
Kanashi.
No. The radish spirit, isn't he? He's the actual quiet spirit. That's what I'm reading here.
He's
That
like
he was a
supposed to be the
quiet.
spirit of
He's
silence.
the one. Yeah, and that's why he kept her quiet in the elevator to hide her and
Oh, I don't know.
protect her from the people that were coming in that bathhouse.
He did seem to kind of look out for her, take her to the top floor, and then he like looks around when she gets out, and then he gets back in and goes wherever the fuck he's actually going, which I guess is back down because she was on the top floor. So there is some weird element of guidance to that, but I didn't find anything additional about that when I was doing research. So if
Because
that's
he
what
didn't,
yours says, then yeah.
but he didn't really talk.
No, he's a
Like it was,
radish. He's not supposed to
yeah.
talk.
I mean, that threw me off because I didn't know what a rat. I mean, I know what a radish looks like, but I didn't think it looked like that. To be honest with you, I thought it was a little, redder.
This is a Japanese movie, but Chinese radishes are white and they look like that. They're like radishes that when you think of an atypical radish in your head, it's a red kind of rounded pointy radish at
Yeah.
the bottom. But Chinese radishes particularly are white and are kind of tubular like that and have little bits that come off them. So he does kind of look like a Chinese radish, but
Okay.
I think he's literally just supposed to be a radish. Like it's that thing of the commentary of like everything has life, everything has a spirit, everything has like we should be kind to everything. I think he's just supposed to be a radish. Just like the ducks are probably just supposed to be ducks. The river has a spirit which is transfigurated into or like metamorphed into a dragon or slash person. Like everything is just supposed to have this element of spirit to it. It has a soul. It's part of nature. I think that's all that it really is. But there could be more to it. I just didn't find anything like that.
Yeah, pretty much. Scenes. Those are the scenes that I like.
I had five scenes that I wrote down. I think you guys touched on a couple of them. Like Julie said, Sen at that time, anyways. Chihiro, journey to Zanita on the train. I put that down as one of my favorite scenes. And what Jay said, her going into the boiler room at the start, that's a great scene. Just kind of seeing the boiler man in action, doing like 5 things at once. Like he's like feeding like he's basically opening up he's getting the bath tokens. He's opening up those little panels.
He's grinding the herbs and everything.
He's grinding the stuff. Yeah, he's grinding that stuff. He's directing he's like banging a hammer. Like he's doing all this kind of crazy stuff. And just like, again, from what I know, the little bit that I know from an animation standpoint, to have somebody in motion doing all these kind of different things, like that's a lot. That takes a lot of work, especially if it's hand drawn. And it's impressive, like that they actually were able to like flesh out that scene with so much going on in the moment like that. So like, and again, just like kind of like to explore that kind of area was really cool. That scene, like, and that character, I thought that was a really, and then, you see all the soot sprites coming through with the coal and throwing them in. And even the cute moments that you got of them taking her shoes and taking her clothes and stuff like that and like bringing them back out. I like that stuff. So that was really cool. And then also probably my two, even though I wrote down 5, my two favorite sequences is one, like Jay said as well, is when they explore the bathhouse. Like for me, like in Star Wars, when they go to the Mos Eisley Cantina and you see all the different aliens and you're like, oh, what's the story on that guy? Like, what's his deal? And I wish they did like a spin-off story of just this character. And like when you're younger too, especially, it opens up your mind. It's so like your mind is just like going in a million different directions. You're like, I don't know who this guy is, what's his deal, like why. And that's the same thing in this movie, just like seeing those like derpy ducks and the radish and these weird squid creatures. You don't know, like it's just a feast for the eye, like a visual kind of treat to see all these different types of people at like a crossroads of sorts. So just like hanging out in this bathhouse. I really wish we do actually spend a lot of time in the bathhouse, and that's again why I mean, I would have just taken a whole movie of them in the bathhouse, honestly. Like I would have been fine with that. And that's why my other favorite part is the stink spirit part, That part is absolutely amazing. I love that, him coming in and like the look on like the witch's face where she's like, oh, hello, how are you? And she's just like, yeah, I think she's like, take her money. Like, oh, you're giving me money. And she doesn't want to touch it. She's like, yeah, take it from him. Send, come here. Like, and then, like, everyone's just absolutely disgusted when she's trying to act like everything's fine because he's a customer. I love that moment. And then obviously it turns into this whole other thing with the and then when the creepy old man head emerges after she pulls that thorn out, he turns into this river spirit. Yeah, and he like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then then he goes in the water and like reemerges and shoots off into the sky, and all of a sudden he's a dragon. I'm like, what is going on? that part, honestly, it's so cool. But yes, what does he say again when he reemerges? Like
he just says, well done.
Well done. Yeah. And then all that, and then he basically just goes back under. But it's so creepy when that head, the floating head,
he's so wrinkly. Yeah. This disconnected jaw and his like 3 teeth.
Yeah, like again, like, and it's like, you know, it's like you said, like the whole trials aspect of this is like he's saying, well done. Oh, you figured out what was really going on here. Because even what's that witch's name? I always forget her name. Yubaba. Even her, she was like, I don't know, something's not right about this stink spirit when he was like coming in. And I just,
she goes, what scum is out there lurking around in the rain?
Like, I did not see that coming. Like what happened in that whole sequence. It's even the first time I watched, even now I find it so crazy what happens in that scene. That's my favorite scene by far, is the stinks. Again, just because there's a little bit of comedy too, with everybody acting like, you know, he doesn't stink. And meanwhile, Lynn comes out with the food and the food goes bad because it's like in his presence, and there's like this pool of like gross grease, like shit coming out from under him. Like, I'm like, what is going on with this guy? Like, it also reminded me, Julie, of like the tendrilled creatures on the wolves in Princess Mononoke, or on those pigs. Remember those the boars, and how there's like that gross like spirit thing,
like covered in like this corruption material.
Yes. It kind of reminded me of that when he was like drifting through, right? But the fact that he's actually going to a bathhouse to like clean himself off, and he like gives them money and stuff, I just thought was very amusing.
He just reminded me of a Grimer, like when he was like slugging through there. He looked like a Pokemon to me.
Yeah, Grimer. Yeah, exactly. And then my final one I wrote down was the no face heel turn when he just starts eating people, and like he has like a weird voice and that's the creepiest thing about this movie is the no face voice. Like he has that weird voice, and he's like trying to like get like, it's just like a perv voice that he has where he's like
kind of
it's kind of creepy and unsettling when he's like trying to motion and like, but then like he has this weird voice when he talks where he, I wrote down one of my quotes, wipe that smile off your face, you're still smiling, when he's like saying that. Like it's like what's wrong with this guy's voice? Like what's
so that's the voice of the first frog that he consumes.
Ah, okay. I didn't pick up on that. Okay, so
that's the voice of the frog, because that's the first one that he ate,
and that's why his legs are frog legs all of a sudden. That makes sense. Okay, so he's like transforming into what he eats. Okay, because like again, like his voice is so unsettling in that moment. I'm like, what?
I guess in some small way, he's a commentary. He could be a commentary on "You Are What You Eat."
Yeah, I guess
could be.
Yeah. For quotes too, I got when the big baby comes there and his aunt comes, Aniba, where he's like, shut your big mouth. You're a bit of a porker, aren't you? That big baby's hilarious too, by the way. That big baby, and then it starts talking with like a very childlike voice, but it's a huge friggin' baby. It's
like, I'm gonna break your arm if you don't play with me, and it's like, holy shit. Jesus Christ.
I'm going to scream. Yeah. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
You would think the big baby had like a big booming voice, but it doesn't. It's just a very like childlike voice, which is also and then I also like when she asked No Face, like, oh, why don't you go home? Don't you have any friends or family? He's like, no, I'm lonely. When he says that.
I'm lonely.
I liked that. And the other quote I had was when she talks to her parents as the pig, she says at the top of her lungs, she shouts, "Don't worry, I'll get you out of here. Don't get any fatter or they'll eat you." She like runs off. Yeah, for quotes in this movie is weird. The things I gravitated towards, because this isn't like some of the dramas where they have like these great speeches,
impactful lines. Yeah,
and this is like that we talk about on the show a lot. This isn't a Quentin Tarantino film, right? This is like, with all this dialogue. This is more of just like funny lines. I felt like line readings essentially by some of the voice actors in this that were really good, right? So so that's all I had written down for quotes and scenes. But those sequences honestly like go on for a big chunk of the film, some of those scenes. So that's why I think I only wrote down a few for this. I was actually able to hold back and be like, because the whole thing visually is just, like I said, an amazing experience watching this film. So
to your point about like the inside of the bathhouse and like you want to know about this guy, about this guy, about this guy. I think that it's sort of unique in its way that each of those weird one-off background characters is kind of fully fleshed out with personality in every interaction they have. It's not just like they're adding dialogue and that's just context. They all have like attitudes.
Yeah.
Like all of the people that work in the bathhouse, they're so sassy.
Yeah.
They have like dynamics, like interpersonal dynamics between different characters, and it's so funny.
Because even the people that are in there, because they've already said that they're not humans, they're like some frog amalgamation people or something. Like it's like right, like those, like their faces kind of look like frog-like. A lot of those people, like the ones that are like greedy and like trying to get all the gold and stuff like that. That's what my interpretation of it was, because like they already stated that they're not humans, right? Or because they're freaking out.
A lot of them are, but then there's like some of them that are just almost like these dwarfish kind of characters. Lynn is a human. Kamaji is like part spider. A lot of them seem to be kind of frog or toad like, but then there is these ones that they're clearly just meant to be people. They're just really short and round. But
you make a great point about, though, like you said, they're so fleshed out. That's why they make such a great impression. I mean, like I said, the same could be said for the Star Wars thing, because those are all like costumes that they made for these characters that they storyboarded out that came from someone's mind, right? This wasn't just like some random people that they put in the scene, right? Like every creature was somebody designed that creature, right? Like for that scene. And that's what makes it so interesting, right? Same goes for it here, right? Clearly these are all illustrations come to life, right? So it's great.
Shall we get into questions?
Sure. Yeah. You want me to start then? Because
go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, the only thing I had written down left that wasn't addressed out of, which is fine. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? The only thing that wasn't addressed by you explaining some of the themes in this film that I had has to do with No Face. And I wrote down, I guess two things: was he good or bad, and what was he exactly? What, like I wrote, is he just misunderstood? Like, what's his deal? What's his end goal here? Because like I felt like there was at times where he flipped the switch and he was a good person to her, and then other times he's being referred to as a monster, and he's doing things like eating people, even though, like I said, I think that was more of a commentary on the greed aspect of this film, if anything. But like, why did he creep in there the way he did? Why was he so weird and creepy? Like, I don't know. Like, but he's one of the biggest characters that has come out of this film, like that people recognize as one of Miyazaki's creations, right? So I just don't know if there's a deeper meaning there, because the way he even ends his story in this, he goes with her on the train to Zeniba, and then he just ends up staying there because she found him useful, and then that's the end of his story there, which I thought was a little unsatisfying, because I'm like, this doesn't really explain much about like what his end goal was here. The only thing I could really come up with myself is that he was a lost soul of some sort, right? And but why his fascination with her? Why even, like, you know what I mean? Like, go on that train.
Too, maybe it was her invisible friend. You know that
he was like imaginary.
Yeah, like imaginary friend. Yeah.
But then he did actually have this huge impact on the bathhouse and everyone else, so probably not imaginary.
We don't know how real that was. Still, that's still another thing up for speculation, right? That's another that would be another question to have. It's because I don't know how, because this can be just play into the whole story of being like as I say, like
like
a dream
imagination.
sequence. Yeah,
Yeah.
like an imagination, like an almost like a dream sequence movie where you know you don't know, you don't actually see it, but then you gotta wonder and think. Okay, I know their style and their culture, and they do have. But if it's a kid, if it's a younger girl like that having a dream, I can see where all this craziness and about the spirit, the crazy, cool, like spirits and the types of characters that are played out in it. Right, I can see that part of it.
I like the theory, but at the same time, I would say that that's like that at the end of the movie, the parents actually make a commentary about how dusty or how messy the car is because we don't know how long that she spent there in this world, right? Like the way they made it seem was that the car had been there for some time, right?
Mhm.
Remember they make
Mhm.
that comment about like how like dirty it is or how much shit got inside the car or whatever, and then
Mhm.
it makes you think like, oh well, then they must have who knows how long she was in this other world there when they stopped, right?
Mhm.
Because in their minds, no time has passed. They were like, oh, we got to get to that home show or get to that home opening. The movers are going to be there. We got to get there before they do. Meanwhile, a week could have passed for all we know, right? Because the way they acted was that car was sitting in the woods for like a long period of time. That's my only thing I'll say to that, though, Jay. I like the
I
theory,
mean,
but
the
like,
theory too. I mean, you can keep going that they actually just stopped at a motel and she didn't realize because she was half asleep.
yeah,
Okay, so here's how we debunk. I'm going to get to Nico's question in a second, but yours has got a quicker and easier answer. Your whole dream sequence theory is not bad and it's right, but to debunk that just immediately, they're pointing to it specifically at the end of the movie. They do this long lingering shot on it. You're supposed to notice it, although it could just sort of slip past you if you're not looking for it. At the end of the movie, when they have crossed through to the other side, they're on the other side of the river, they're on the other side of that entryway to the theme park. She's looking at the car, and it's supposed to be this kind of long sort of shot where she's thinking about everything that just happened. She still has the purple hair tie from when she was in the spirit world. So she got that purple elastic from Zaniba.
yes.
And she goes, take this. This will protect you. It was made by your friends, whatever. She takes her red one out. She puts the purple one on. She has it at the end of the movie. So that's sort of to debunk that it wasn't a dream and it wasn't made up.
Oh, so it's like Inception.
Yeah.
Right. Although
I mean, you can look at
Inception
that
left
other ways too.
purposely on that whole thing where
Sure.
he's a girl not, but people have debunked that by now too because
Yeah.
if his family, yeah, okay, I get it. That's kind of interesting. So there
It's
is
sort of, yeah, to kind of take it away from like, was it a dream? Was it a fever? What is it? It was like, nope. Here's evidence that she
so that was
has
deliberate.
a piece of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But to get back to Nico's question about what is No Face, what is he meant to be? I have two kind of answers for this. They sort of go hand in hand, but one of them is my interpretation of it. Might be loosely inspired by some things I read online, but it's mostly just my interpretation of what he's meant to represent. There's also like things I found in my research about it of like what he is physically supposed to represent as a character, like why he's designed this way, which I'll get to that part first. So he is like his character design is inspired by he's supposed to resemble a silkworm, which is an important animal in Japanese culture.
Transformation. Is that what you're gonna say? It's a transformation symbol, essentially.
It could be. That's kind of part of my interpretation of it, but like their literal interpretation is he is resembling a silkworm, which is important to them in Japanese culture, and that he seems to have this white face with his mouth below. Silkworms have markings that look like facial features, and their mouths are below the marking. So like his mouth is behind or below his mask, and the silkworms have this very similar kind of marking in their mouth as below. And similarly to how No Face is as a character, silkworms will eat constantly and they will overgrow and become quite large and plump. At the end of the movie, he goes with Sen at the time and to visit Zaniba, and he stays with Zaniba. And my other quote that I wrote down, where the fuck did it go? Is here. Where did you learn how to spin, No Face? Because No Face is a silkworm.
Yes, yes.
So he knows how to spin silk. That's their whole homage to that as a culturally important animal, is that he's meant to be a silkworm. My interpretation of what he is meant to represent, like you said, could be about transformation, and that's probably part of it. But my interpretation of it is he is called No Face. So he is meant to be, in my interpretation of things, it's like he could be anyone. And he is very impervious to influence, and he is like susceptible to corruption, but he is also redeemable. So it's a commentary on humans can be both bad and good. That is my interpretation of it. Is like
the answer. Like I said, I couldn't figure out if he was bad or good. So then, it's. But then,
it's like people can have bad streaks, but they can also come out on the other side and redeem themselves. I think that is supposed to be what the commentary is on it. Is that he's also sort of this, like you were saying, he has kind of this weird voice, and he almost doesn't even say anything. He's just making this sound. It's like it's almost like he could be a representation of childlike innocence in that moment. He's just trying to make a friend. He's trying to find out what she wants. He wants to be likable, which is like could be said of anyone. But then he is susceptible to the corruption that's going on in the bathhouse. There's all of these super mean characters, these people around that are very greedy and very, like corrupted as like morally as characters potentially. And then he ingests one and adapts the characteristics of that frog, that greedy frog that's picking through the fucking floorboards looking for gold. And then he ingests the frog, he becomes the frog in a way, he has the frog's voice, and then he becomes very greedy, he becomes very gluttonous, he just wants to eat food, and he wants to give gold, and he sort of adapts the characteristics of that frog, which is the first one he consumes, and he doesn't necessarily seem to adapt anything from the other two people that he eats.
No.
And then she gives him that emetic magic ball, and then he is vomiting up all of this corrupted material, and then he eventually vomits up the two people and the frog. So he rids himself of all this corrupted material that has been poisoning him to become this bad person. And then he leaves the bathhouse, he goes with Chihiro, he stays with Zeniba because Zeniba is a good influence, and his story ends there because he has redeemed at that point. That's my interpretation of things, is that he's staying with her because she is a good influence, and he's going to be better for it because the bathhouse is not a good place for him, and he's so susceptible to these micro evils that are going on there.
Yeah, that makes sense. That tracks. That makes sense. I mean, so he's just a reflection of everybody, his surroundings, like impressionability as a human. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean but that's like I said, I didn't come to that conclusion, but what I described was basically also what you were saying about he's not good or bad. And I guess in a way, he's not a archetype like you would normally expect in these type of stories. Like he's actually got a lot of different layers to him in that sense, right? Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's interesting. I love the character, but I really just don't know I didn't know what his whole deal was, because I feel like when he's creepy, but yet we're supposed to like this guy at some points, right? And then like the way he just clings on to her, it was interesting.
And he does seem to be like all of these adult characters otherwise are making these judgment calls on him. They're like, he's bad, he's a monster, whatever. And Chihiro's like trying to lead him out, and she's very kind to him when she's like, Yubaba wants you to leave. Yes. I would like to leave now. She's like trying to treat him with this kindness, but also she's like trying to lead him away. She gives him the magic stone that makes him vomit, and then as he gets out of the bathhouse, she sort of waves to him when they're on that little boat, and Lynn's like, what are you doing? He's gonna follow us. And she says, no, I think the bathhouse is making him crazy, and he'll be good now.
Right.
And so she's kind of like leaving it open. He's a vulnerable character, and she's trying to be understanding. So maybe, like you were saying, he is just misunderstood.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Good breakdown. Yeah.
but that's mostly my interpretation of it. I didn't find too much sort of
it makes sense. Yeah, I
but-
mean that's all I got from it as well. A lot of the things you were saying, but yeah, I mean, I didn't know if there was a definitive kind of explanation of him somewhere out there, right? Or at least not came across.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the only question I really had that was left unanswered. I feel like.
You have any, Jay?
No, I just the way it was played out, the whole visual aspect of it when I had said that before. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So real questions. I mean, like I said, I don't know if it's a dream thing. I just wanted to you kind of debunked that part for me. So I'm just trying to. I don't really.
That's what I think, that they sort of did that deliberate kind of callback to like, oh, the purple thing is still in her hair. It's a really long shot for what it is, but yeah, I think that's what they're trying to illustrate with that. The question that I wrote down, and I didn't look any of this up because I was like, I don't want an answer to this. I want this for my question section. Is how did she know that her parents were not in the pig pen? How did she know that?
I think that goes back to that line about knowing somebody, even though you don't really like. I think it goes back to that about remembering. I think it was just like it's a sense more so. Like I think it's because there is a part even when she has the dream, the nightmare, where she can't tell her who her parents are at a certain point, and then I think that. The reason why they kind of did it that way was to bring it back to that moment where she freaked out in her dream and she wasn't able to identify who her parents was. But deep down, I guess she just had a sense of herself or of her parents in that moment. That's the way I took it, was that
once you know somebody, you don't really forget them. I guess that's,
So
that makes sense.
And then, I think that I don't even think that she actually had any ill will towards her at the end, despite what we thought about the witch. I think that she was truly just trying to test her in that way so that she could grow as a person at the end. Honestly, I think it was just a teachable moment in that sense, because even when they said that, oh, your parents are already on the other side waiting for you, they weren't actually even there at that time. They transported them back. So I think I think at the end of the day, I think she just had to get over that hurdle for herself, honestly. At the end, I think that it all came full circle, but that doesn't make her parents any better. I mean, they're still parents.
This kind of just came up to me now. I didn't have this written down, but I guess this is something that was kind of an unanswerable question in a way. That I think it's sort of answered by the whole thing about how the spirit world is social death in a way, and she had social resurrection, whatever. But Haku says to her as they're saying goodbye, and he says, "Don't turn back, don't look back, just keep going until you get to the other side of the entryway." That she says, "Will we see each other again?" He says, "Oh, I'm sure we will," something to that regard. Do you think that means we will see each other again in death?
Well, maybe, yeah.
Because he can't return. His river is gone.
Maybe.
So when she becomes a spirit, when she dies,
and
they will reunite.
Yeah, maybe. That's what that meant. Yeah, maybe that's what that meant. Because I mean, like I said, I'll have to look at the movie way differently now that you've revealed some of the things you did here today in this conversation. Because even the whole idea of her going through that tunnel and him saying don't look back, it's kind of like moving forward with your life, right? Knowing that this is about her kind of, like you said, transformation of sorts. Or which I know that I think that's also part of their beliefs and stuff like that about reincarnation and stuff like that, right? So coming out the other side changed by some sort of experience, right? So that's it's literally the like you said, the metaphors and the themes are staring at you right in the face in these moments, but I did not realize some of these things. So that's it's really cool, really well done.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I said, I think I thought it was a coming of age,
I got the coming of age part of it, but I didn't understand
You're
why.
growing even as a person, as a human
Yeah.
being. You know, you want to stay away from those sins if you want to put it in any other way. That they're kind of introducing her into that
Yeah.
in that spirit world, right?
Right, which she didn't exhibit. I mean, even in the
Yeah.
parts where he was like, "Take the gold," she's like, "I don't want
I
that.
don't want it.
I don't need this." Like,
No, she was always there. She wanted to help the other people, if anything,
yes,
right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah. She even put her. Well, that was the thing. She gave that medicine. She gave to No Face, and she also gave it to what's his name?
Haku.
Yes, instead of her parents. Each one of those were for her parents' transformation to get back from being a pig, but she sacrificed that because she tried to care for the people in the moment that were with her, right? Like, so yeah, I mean, and she said that both times. She's like, well, this is supposed to be for my parents, but you need it right now. Like, so, you know what I mean? I'll give it to you. So like, yeah, it's about self-sacrifice as well, right? In that sense. Yeah. And not
being selfish.
Not being selfish, not being greedy. Yeah. That's an ongoing theme, clearly. Yeah. So yeah, good stuff.
As far as legacy is concerned, there's kind of a lot of it, which, like, it's arguably his most popular film, I would say, like, or his most widely recognized, I guess I should say, at least at this point in time. It's very highly regarded in the film community as like one of the greatest movies of all time, making a lot of like top 100 lists of best movies, or movies you must see before you die, or movies that I watched and I was a changed person by the end of it. Like, there's a lot of top lists that it makes, where, you know, it's made the top 100 somehow. For about 20 years after it was released, it was the highest grossing film in Japanese history. It got surpassed by a different movie in 2020, but it held the top spot for a long time. It was the first hand-drawn Japanese anime and non-English language animation to win an Oscar in the animated feature category, which had only existed for 1 year previous to this.
Yeah.
Which Shrek got it the year before, which I find to be very fun. So year 2 of the best animated feature category, it was the winner. It inspired multiple Disney and Pixar things that followed it, like Brave and Frozen and Coco and something else I read. And it's still like pretty widely loved in the community, I would say. Longtime fans of his always speak pretty highly of it. And it's a very important part of his catalog, I think. And Billie Eilish just wrote a song inspired by it on her last album, I think, as well.
Oh, really?
There's one called it's her favorite movie, I think, as well, or one of her favorites, if I remember correctly, and she has a song called Chihiro on the album.
Oh, I didn't know that. Huh.
Yep.
I'll have to ask Christine. She probably didn't pick up on that. She's a fan of hers. Okay.
Yeah. So that's mostly what I had written down for Legacy.
Yeah, you pretty much covered it. All I wrote down is that it's a masterclass in animation, as I mentioned earlier, and is what is widely considered his best film. That's what I wrote down for that. Yeah. Yep.
No.
Yeah, you covered it. That's
What do you think, Jay?
I can't say anything. It's the first anime. That's his legacy that he'll leave on me. That's his first first anime that I've actually sit there and watched. So that's what it'll leave on me, because I can't think of a legacy that at least behind for myself.
Do you think it will inspire you to watch more?
Might be.
Well, that's the legacy enough for me.
Well, I would, you know, maybe I can try it out, and maybe there's something else out there that is a little different. Maybe, you know, like Nico was saying, I mean, you guys were saying at the beginning that, you know, a little bit less of overthinking and just straight to the point.
It's a hot start. It's very, like he was saying, it's very layered, and it's chaotic. But
well, Jay, I never thought of the film on this level, and I've seen it many times. So, you know what I mean? Like, I enjoyed it purely on this, like, you know, like for like how fun of a film it was previous to this. That being said, I did connect with his other movies on more of a deeper level, and so there is that part of it too, right? But I think I think I've seen all of his movies more than once at this point. I've seen every single one at least twice. So
Yeah, I mean, it did make an impression two different ways in that sense. I mean, that could lead us to anything, but it did with the visual aspect, and then when hearing that, thinking about the storyline afterwards, watching it the second time, it's like almost like two different movies for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, because it was a lot to visually take in the beginning.
It's a lot to digest. Yeah.
It is, right? So,
Yeah.
but it was interesting, very interesting.
Yeah.
That's what I guess for me it left behind. It left behind that maybe it'll have me inspired to watch some more.
There you go.
Right?
Good.
Now, I know this is my favorite category, but I want to go last this time.
Yeah, you got a lot, sounds like. I don't think, Jay, do you have any pairings, Jay?
Pairings, I was gonna say because of the purgatory aspect of it and stuff like that. I was just gonna go back and watch some old Beetlejuice. Why not? Right? Or
I like
what
it.
I also thought of too when we were just sitting here and I was thinking, I was like, why don't you go, you can maybe use, if you want to go kind of more creepier and just stick to the greed aspect of it, why don't you put Seven on?
Interesting.
You go
Interesting choice.
Terrible fucking pairing with this movie.
Maybe watch that one first and palate cleanse with this one afterwards.
Yeah, you can feel better about yourself after Seven to watch this one. I mean, I love Seven, but I think that's like the worst pairing I've ever heard on this show.
Oh yeah, okay, before and after, sir. But this could be the digestive afterwards.
There you go.
Right?
Palate cleanser. I knew that he was going to have some hot takes, and that was a weird one.
Yeah. There you go. There's Jay thinking about Seven.
Which I think got reviewed once, didn't it?
We did. Yes, we have.
Yeah,
of course. I mean, we're sickos at the end of the day. Yeah, it's funny because I'm surprised you actually didn't even come back around on this, Jay. But one of my picks was the never-ending story for what you said because of the dragon and then flying dragon.
I don't know if I can do it anymore. Yeah, I know.
Also, just like how imaginative that movie is and scary at times. Absolutely, it has all those elements as well as this movie does, right? So that's
giant puppets.
Yeah, I put that down as one of my picks. For my Miyazaki pairing, I put Howl's Moving Castle. That's that for me. I think that's the perfect pairing in terms of like the type of movie that those two movies are. I think that's the closest I would say to this is Howl's Moving Castle, just because of the some of the types of characters and things and fantastical elements of the film.
That's usually the double pairing that I do.
Yeah, Howl's Moving Castle is the Miyazaki pairing for this, in my opinion as well. I also put down, then I kind of just started focusing in terms of themes of like adventures, journeys for children in dark kind of territory in some way aspects. I put Pan's Labyrinth as one.
I also had that.
Yeah. I know that's a big film you like as well that I actually just watched for the first time, I think a year or two ago. Honestly, I'd never seen it before then.
I think that one's also in my top 4.
I figured, yeah.
I think it is. Yeah.
It is. And then again, in that
anime one?
No.
Or is that the
Guillermo del Toro?
It's Guillermo del Toro.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of a whole different Labyrinth.
Yeah, not that one. Yeah. And then I also wrote down Alice in Wonderland because that's a young girl going to another world essentially, right? And Chronicles of Narnia. That's what I wrote down for my movie pairings.
I also wrote that one down.
Yeah. So
nice.
That's kind of where I'm at. I couldn't really come up with, and maybe you will, other types of animated films other than Miyazaki to pair this with. I'm not. Oh, sorry. No, what am I saying? I said Alice in Wonderland. So yeah, there's one at least that I came up with, but I was having a hard time trying to think of other ones in terms of the themes outside of what Miyazaki does. I was having a hard time. That kind of. So yeah, go ahead.
I wrote down like basically, if you like this, you should explore the rest of his catalog. Watch anything directed by Miyazaki. That's what I put down for my Studio Ghibli pairing. But I do agree with you. In the double feature that I usually do is I will watch Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle if I'm having a Miyazaki day. I did write down Chronicles of Narnia as well because it's like the same sort of portal into the new strange fantasy world through a closet. Same kind of theme there on the fantasy vibe. I did write down Pan's Labyrinth as well. Same thing, kind of the fantasy vibe. Alice in Wonderland, there's a lot of people online that make that comparison as well, so that I agree with you there. They also do make comparisons to Pinocchio because of the whole transfigurative with she turns the parents into pigs. That guy turns the boys into donkeys. That thing, there's that thematically that's similar as well.
That is a scary scene when you're younger.
Yeah.
That donkey scene, that was messed up when I watched that as a kid. Yeah, and that's like the whole aspect of them, the whole idea of them going into the that circus and him basically being like held captive and stuff like that. Or that was messed up. I remember that was a dark theme in a Disney film for me, at least. When I was yeah,
hits the same vibe. She's trapped in the bathhouse because she has to same thing. I wrote down. I think I've talked about this movie before. It's one of these fever dream movies from my childhood that a lot of people haven't seen, but it did get remade recently as a live action. It was called Little Nemo. It got remade as a live action called Slumberland.
Yeah, the one with Aquaman.
Yeah, with Jason Momoa. But I'm talking about the original one from like the late 80s, I think.
That's one of Christine's favorite movies of all time.
I fucking love that movie. It's scary. It's a kid's movie, but it's also scary as fuck in the same kind of fantasy vibe of like, he goes into this dream world when he's asleep type thing. So it does have kind of similar themes there, as far as like the fantasy vibe is concerned. I wrote down WALL-E on the environmentalism vibe. Kids movie that explores the environmentalism theme.
Great fucking movie. Yeah, WALL-E's great.
Yep. I wrote down Coco on the spirit world and, that whole vibe.
Yeah, sure.
I wrote down Iron Giant, also on the environmentalism vibe, on a cartoon movie for kids.
It's a fun one. Yeah.
I think that's in my top 4 as well. I feel like it might be.
Whoa.
I need to recheck my top 4. I wrote down Treasure Planet on a fantasy vibe, mostly just on a vibe. Like, they hit the same nostalgia factor for me.
Yeah, I know what it is. I've never seen that one, though.
Oh, I recommend that one. It is just Treasure Island, but then they made it space and they cast Joseph Gordon-Levitt. So like, what could go wrong? I also wrote down Coraline on the portal to the fantasy world.
So we literally had this conversation, me and Christine. We both agreed that it'd be a pairing, but when I came up with some other ones, I didn't include it in my list. But I agree with you. We both agreed on that aspect of the family and the
the parents are trapped.
Yes. She agreed with me on that one.
Yeah, and that's what I had. That's pretty much it. Now I need to check my top 4 to make sure that I'm not. No, I do have different things in my top 4. I have Spirited Away, Watchmen, Pan's Labyrinth, and V for Vendetta. Yeah.
That's right, which you also have done on the show here. We've done that one, so nice. Okay, so very quickly though, Miyazaki power rankings before we wrap it up. I got my list here. You can go first if you want, though. It doesn't matter to me.
Let me grab it right here.
This is me and Julie are gonna rank the Miyazaki films, the ones that are directed by him, the ones that he had a hand in, essentially, from Studio Ghibli, not the other Ghibli films. Those aren't on this list, but there's a lot of other ones that are done by his son and like other people involved in the studio. So
ideally, I would have done a rewatch on all of them to more clearly identify my ranking. Like, things might hold very close spots if I were to do a rewatch, but at the time when I built the list, and with one small adjustment right before we were recording, this is how they sit at this moment. Spirited Away is my number 1, with Howl's Moving Castle number 2, Princess Mononoke number 3, Kiki's Delivery Service number 4, My Neighbor Totoro number 5, Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind at 6, Ponyo at 7, Boy and the Heron at 8, Castle in the Sky at 9, The Wind Rises at 10, Porco Rosso at 11.
Okay, so there's a few that we got around the same area, and then there's some jarring differences in our list as well. Okay, so this is in order from 1 up, then the same way you did, or down, I guess. Number 1 for me. And again, this is the last time I wrote this down. And the only movie I'm inserting into this list, which was done, I guess, maybe a couple years ago now or whatever, is The Boy and the Heron. That's the only one I'm inserting somewhere on this list. So number 1, Princess Mononoke. That's my favorite. Number 2, Kiki's Delivery Service. Okay.
Mhm.
Number 3 is Howl's Moving Castle. Okay, so we're around the same kind
We're
of
in the same area.
neighborhood. This is where it's greatly different. Wind Rises is my 4th favorite. I love that movie. It is definitely his most serious and adult film out of all of his catalog. And I can see it moving down the list. Honestly, the more I revisit it, and for just the. And then at one point, like I said, Spirited Away was number 1 for me. It is now coming in at number 5, the one we just talked about here today. Okay?
Middle of the road.
Yeah, so it's in the top 5 still, but Princess Mononoke went down to number 1, and Kiki's Delivery Service is also in the number 1 contender at one point. But it's funny because I think it's the second time I revisited Princess Mononoke. For whatever reason, that viewing shot it right to the top for me. I really connected with it the second time. Then at number 6 after Spirited Away, I'd say Nausicaa. This is where it kind of gets interesting, though. I'm gonna probably put Boy and the Heron here at number 7, but it could kind of be around 7 or 8. Here's the thing with that movie. That one I really don't understand. Like, I've watched it twice now. I understand some of the themes in it, but I feel like I understand it even less than I do this movie. Like, even after this
Me too.
It's very out there, but again, there's so many really cool scenes in that film, like that army of birds or whatever. That whole craziness that happens in that whole middle of the movie is insane. Like, it's got some really, really cool stuff in it. Then I say Porco Rosso. Then I say Totoro, which I know would rank lower for a lot of people because it is a very famous film, but the cutesy aspect of it, I'm just gonna put it lower for me. Then Castle in the Sky, just kind of felt that one was very boring, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, not that interesting compared to everything else. And then for me, last is Ponyo. It's just basically a remaking of Little Mermaid.
I understand.
It's a Japanese culture, folklore, and Little Mermaid, essentially, right? So, anyways, yeah, that's my rankings for my the top 11 Miyazaki films. So
I would say that it's not that I dislike The Wind Rises. Like, it's at number 10 for me. You know what? I would probably even swap it with Castle in the Sky.
I think it's fair. Yeah.
But The Wind Rises was just like, it's
least fantastical of his films too.
I guess. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's what I would think for you, at least, right? Like, that's probably why you didn't like it as much as the other things. Yeah.
It's not,
it's grounded in the real world.
It feels kind of procedural a little bit in a way. I get it's all about his love for aviation, obviously, but like, it's also kind of sad. I don't know.
That's why when he went out on that film, though, and stopped doing them,
I guess.
It was like his love. It was like, it is very sad, but it's a post. It's not even post-war. It's literally World War II. Like, it's like, so like, of course it's gonna be sad. It's about a man creating for the love of creating, yet it kills people, his creation. That's what the movie is about. Jay, actually, that one might actually be a good one for you because it's very grounded in reality, that movie.
Yeah.
Everything else that he did. It's the most adult grounded film, I think, of his. Yes. And it is sad. It is very sad for sure.
Have you seen, this is not in our rankings, but have you seen Grave of the Fireflies?
No, I've heard it's depressing as fuck, though. I
haven't watched it either. I'm too spooked, but I know it's not. Now I know it's not him directing. It doesn't feel as important to me, but I feel like I need to watch it once just to understand what all these people are crying about.
That's
it's brutal from what I hear.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's any final stuff though on this movie, Julie. This is your movie, your pick, your final.
I love it. It's great. I recommend it highly to anyone that wants to go on a fantastical journey, just like JT did.
with or without substance.
With or without the element of influence.
And yeah, you weren't wrong. We definitely did run long on this one, but it was worth
I knew we would.
It was a great one. Yeah, this is honestly, we've been on quite the tear of films here lately on the show. I think we've had some really good picks, but now we're coming to JT's pick though.
Drum roll, please.
All right, JT, you're up next with your pick.
What do you got, brother?
Oh no, what you're picking?
So you know what? I'm just gonna fuck Nico. No. I'm gonna pick is somebody with his man crush to throw in a little comedy there, and then I'm gonna pick "I Love You, Man."
Oh, nice.
I know why he picked this too, because if you guys watch next week on Late Night Letterbox, me and Jay will be talking about a film that we watched together in theaters, and I get why he picked "I Love You, Man." Very timely, good pick. I love that movie. I think it's fucking hilarious. So
Good pick.
I'm like,
Did the double feature with Psycho, right?
yeah, I'm gonna watch it like probably like 3 times now before we talk. I love that. It's a great movie. Good pick. Good pick. Yeah, no, it's good. And actually, it's been a while since we've done a comedy too. So yeah, good one.
True.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I thought I'd switch it up. I don't mind bringing the comedy.
That's right. We know that.
All Whether intentional or not.
That's right.
Any given Sunday. What the fuck?
That movie's hilarious.
It doesn't want to be.
Well, you're out in the hood.
The grits are cooking. Oh.
I'm sorry. I always gotta do that Pacino in that part. It's the best.
Oh god.
Did you like the jambalaya? Okay.
Jambalaya. That's what it was.
Jambalaya.
Oh god.
All right, guys, that's gonna do it for this episode. Make sure to like and subscribe. We hope you enjoyed this conversation, and great pick, Julie, once again, and great pick, Jay, for our next one. I Love You, Man will be the next episode. And I don't want to say anything about who is going to be here or not be here, because sometimes that changes. So make sure to tune in and see what happens then. All right. So what's the outro song here, Julie, again? Which one we got going here?
I put down, Reprise? Let me check. Reprise, yeah.
Yeah.
Feels like an outro song.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we'll see you guys next time. Make sure to check out Late Night Letterbox, like and subscribe, and all of our other content here on the channel. Later.